Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Knocked Conscious. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Bob LeMent. He's part of staticradio.com. It's one of the first 50 podcasts ever created. Here's our conversation. I hope you enjoy it. The foot is on the other shoe.
Oh my!
Now
What's
your
that
turn,
mean?
sir. I don't know, but I think it's your turn, man. So how are you? How you been?
I'm good. How are you? It's
Good.
been
Happy New Year.
super cold, and here in the
Yeah.
Midwest, it's been
Tell us
freezing.
about the Midwest coldness. I hear you guys have some crazy.
Yeah, I was like negative. I don't know, like negative 10 degrees or something the other day. That was just the actual temperature. The wind chill was like negative 25. I think 2 nights ago. So not fun, as they
And you're
say.
like Midwest. You're like smack dab gateway to the West
Yeah,
kind of
the
Midwest.
gateway to the West. Yeah, St. Louis.
Love it.
Normally, we don't have that. I mean, we have weather, but not like that. This is a
Yeah.
little unusual. So,
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, or I'm from Pennsylvania, but I'm in Arizona, and we even had 30s.
yeah.
So
Oh, really? In
for us to
Arizona,
have
you
that
did? Oh my
in
gosh.
Phoenix, yeah. So for us to have that, it's rare. It's rare. I mean, I think I've seen 19 once, but
Hmm.
you know, it's a rare thing. It's
By the time I get to Phoenix, it'll be 19 degrees.
120. Hey, we've hit 120, 120, 121. So
Yeah, the
that's
news said we were colder than Antarctica on that day. I think it was Tuesday, Monday. What's today? Wednesday. Monday. Yeah.
very cool. And it's
So
January 2024. So some
right. Yeah. For
legit.
reference, in case you listen to it
Yeah,
in the future.
here for posterity as they dust
In
it
the
off after the
future.
nuclear annihilation.
Right. Yeah. Right. If you picked up an old Sansa clip and you're listening to this because somebody put it onto that, then now you know what
Oh
year.
my gosh. We need one of those max 100 megabyte tape drives. Is what
Oh my gosh.
iCloud? What was
Yeah.
it? I Omega?
I Omega. Yeah, that was an I
Is
Omega.
it? I
Yeah.
think it was I Omega.
Then
So,
they had the zip drive, and then they had the jazz drive, and they had yeah. Oh my gosh.
and I could talk for hours on.
Memories.
We could wax poetic on every
Yeah,
cable that we have sitting in a
I
garage, right?
I waited for the zip drive, and then it was here and gone.
Yeah. I
I was
remember the
so
Sony disc,
disappointed.
the mini disc thing that was like a
Oh yeah,
cartridge as well.
yeah,
It's like a floppy disk that you put in for music.
yeah.
A lot of cool stuff.
A lot of cool
So,
technology has already zipped past us, and now nobody gives a shit.
yeah, no kidding, right? Like I mean, we're just kind of making the more perfect wheel, but we're not really making anything new, right?
Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm like,
Just
we had
honing it.
floppy disks for a long time, and then they were going to come out with the zip thing, which was 100 megabytes, I think, at the time.
It
And
was.
Jazz was a gigabyte, and a zip was 100 megabytes. And you're like, you had a little floppy disk, which was 1.44 megabytes. And you're like, oh my God, the zip disk is going to be the best thing ever. And then, yeah, who cares, right?
And we come from Carmen San Diego Tandy T1000 floppies for 5 1/4. So
Right. Where in the world is Carmen San Diego?
dee doo dee doo tick 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 tick. Just
Yeah,
throwing
no,
out.
exactly. Yeah, people are like already tuning out of this shit. I'm telling you, they're like, who
I
cares?
don't care, man. I remember actually disconnecting the speaker so I could play it at night. That little
Oh yeah.
speaker, I clicked it, cut it, and then retaped it so I
Oh,
could
so you
listen
could
to
keep
it.
playing it without it making too much noise.
Yep, yeah, I just cut out the ground. So anyway,
Sneaking in some game time.
so Bob, you are an early adopter, sir. Speaking of technology,
Yeah, that's probably why I know about all these things. Is because I'm
yeah.
stupid and I jump in early and spend all my hard-earned money on things.
So tell us
Yeah.
about static radio. What's the beginning of how this happened? I mean, you tell people what you are, and when you told me, I'm super excited for it. But when you tell me that you tell other people, and they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah, whatever.
anyway."
Yeah.
So what about my
Anyway.
Bitcoin or something?
Yeah,
I don't.
exactly. I wish I was a
So
little
tell.
more into Bitcoin back in the day.
I know. I remember when it's $300 a Bitcoin. I went to
Yeah.
one of those Bitcoin ATM machines. There was like one in the entire valley, and I remember driving by it and going, "Who's going to spend $300 for $1?"
Right. Yeah.
Like
Right.
I mean, what the heck did I know as a college, like a
Uh,
college kid with
I
stupid,
uh,
right?
I didn't pull the trigger on it, but I was listening to Security Now, which is a now podcast, but it was back then prior to podcasting, I think, where what's his last name? I can't remember. Steve. I'm blanking on his last name, but he was mining Bitcoin and he got 50 Bitcoin in the
Was it
early
Wozniak or
days.
something, or
No, no. What is his last name? I can't think of.
Jobs, maybe?
No, no, no. He's a security expert.
Oh,
He's
okay.
also named Steve. Um,
There's a lot of Steves out there.
yeah, there are a lot of Steves in that time period. But anyway, yeah, he got 50 bit. He mined 50 Bitcoins on. He just had a couple of old like Pentium machines running. I was like, oh, I should do that, and then I didn't do it. Here we are today. Although I do know a Bitcoin millionaire.
Really?
Yeah, so and that actually works into the history of static. He was one of our first. We don't have too many guests over the years, but early on, John Hargrave is his name,
Yeah,
and
I know the name.
yeah, he's also an internet pioneer, internet media pioneer, and he became a Bitcoin millionaire because he paid attention, and now he talks about it and does a whole writes and does shows and stuff on Bitcoin. So
Very
good for
cool.
him. He's a really nice guy too, by the way.
Very nice. How did
But
you get in touch with him? How did you guys
so
connect?
he used to do a show. This actually gets to the beginning of this show, the Static Show. Not this show, but anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so he used to do a show called Computer Stew, and Computer Stew was a daily video show on the internet back would be probably in 1999-ish, 1998.
Yeah.
And he worked for
It's like,
Ziff Davis Computer Magazine, and he had to do other things, but one of the things that he was able to do there was to try to make this video show, which was really quite difficult um, during the time because there wasn't all the tools like we have now. So
right.
and
Yeah, you
I would
basically
watch it.
actually had to invent the wheel at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And well, the idea was that it was I think it was for an article originally, and they're like, hey, we can take off the shelf electronics and make a uh, like a little television show and put it on the internet. And then it spun off from there where they made many, and he basically did it for I think I don't I'll probably be misquoting it, but he did it for a while, and I remember watching it, and that kind of spurred me on, and I'm like, well, I don't want to do a video show because that's a lot of work. Back then it was a lot of work, and even now it's a lot of work. But so we could do an audio show, and that was kind of part of the process. It was that and a few other things because I was very, very into listening to things online when there wasn't a lot of things to listen to. And so I said, well, I had done college radio with my friend Miles, who's also my co-host still to this day. And I said,
Wow.
Miles, I can do.
How long now?
We're just in our 25th year in
Wow.
January 1st.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. You say congratulations. My wife says, "Why are you doing this?" But
Labor
so
of love, man. It
yeah,
really is.
Miles and I did college radio together, and we were out of college and working, regular boring jobs. And I said, "Oh, I've been watching this stuff. We could do a show." And I said, "I think I know how to do it." And he goes, and he's like, okay, I mean, whatever. So Miles has never been a huge, motivated person. I guess I'll put it that way. He doesn't mind being taken along for the ride, but
He
he's not.
balances you.
Yeah, he's not gonna initiate the ride. He'll just take it.
Right. He
And
seems like a
so
fun
yeah,
hang, is what
yeah,
that
oh
kind of
yeah.
vibe
He's like,
seems
yeah,
to
if
be
you
at
want to
you.
do it, yeah, I'll come in and participate, but I'm not doing the work. Kind of like me tonight. I'm Miles in this scenario. You're doing all the work tonight. I'm just hanging
I
out.
hope I
Doing
am. It's well worth. You were kind. You were more than gracious to me.
So I at that point in time, I just had the idea, but I didn't have everything, and so I got a book from a friend of mine, How to Code HTML in 7 days, and I read that book. It may still be available. I have no idea, but
I think it's on one of those shelves that you can dust
yeah,
off.
it could be. And it took me a little longer than 7 days, but I read the book and then I put together a website, which you actually can still look at. The HTML version of the old website is still being hosted, although it's kind of frozen in time at this point. But and voila, I had a website, and that was we actually started recording on Thanksgiving night in 1998 was the first test show. And I was still coding the website, but I had it done by Christmas. And then we kept doing shows, test shows. We did like, I don't know, 3 or 4 test shows between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then everything was ready to go, and launched everything on the 1st of January in 1999. So, and yeah, and pretty much all the shows are out there. I mean, there may be some holes in there just because of time, because there was no WordPress, there was no, organization. And so we've gone through several iterations since the original HTML. And now obviously WordPress is kind of king in those regards as far as that goes. But so I think I've got pretty much everything out now. If you wanted to go look at it, staticradio.com. So there may be a few holes here and there, but I have all the files. So thank goodness I have all the files. But yeah, and so we just kept doing. And the weird thing is, I thought we would do this for a year, maybe 2 years, something like that. And
Right.
actually, Hargrave came in. I think he was in the first year. We had him. I sent him a note because Zug was still. The funny thing is, I sent him a note about not Zug. I'm sorry, about Computer Stew. He did another website called Zug.com, which was a comedy website. And I said, hey, I want to do an interview with you. Would you want to do this? And this was all over the phone. This was before, Skype and Zoom and all this shit. So
People answered the phone back in the day,
yeah.
Bob.
And so
People actually, like, when you called, there was like a purpose.
yeah,
And when you got a
exactly.
phone call, you figured they were calling you for a purpose.
The interesting, yeah. What you say that it used to be, at least when I was younger, if you didn't answer the phone, there was hell to pay.
Yeah.
With my parents,
We can
right?
get back to that. I don't want to take you away from the story. So, but we grew
So
up very similar in that
yeah,
there was no phone left unrung.
right, exactly. You go
Ringing or something.
somebody pick up the goddamn phone. So we had a phone interview with him, and he was gracious enough to be on. And the terrible thing was he got laid off. He didn't get fired. He got laid off, and so Computer Stew ended right as he was. It was known when he was doing the interview, and so I actually even made fun of him about it, which is horrible in hindsight. But
Oh wow.
I go,
You know
oh
what
yeah,
though?
you
How
guys got
you were young
canceled.
back then. You were young and brash. You were just having fun back
Yeah,
then.
that's true. I was well, and that was kind of his. He had a little bit of a shticky thing on Computer Stew, where he was young at the time too, and so it fit in with his persona. I'll put it that way. So, but yeah, that was one of the earliest things. So yeah, we did. But Miles and I don't do a lot of interviews typically. It just hasn't worked that way. We do our bit each week, and we love it, and it makes us happy, I guess. And so we just have
So
to
what is the
continue
bit?
that. So,
What
well,
what what do you do?
we
Tell
talk.
us what
So
you do.
we do stories. So each week, the whole premise of the whole thing was because we used to do this on college radio as well. So you didn't have as much freedom in college radio, because even though it was college radio, they still wanted you to play rotation, and then
Right.
we
We had
had
A, B, and C rotations, I
right,
remember, or
yeah.
A and B at least. I remember.
Well, it depends on the program directors. It would change because in college they don't last super long, and then we had to do PSAs, and then every once in a while we'd actually have an advertisement. But with the college radio, those are kind of few and far between sometimes. Or they're, don't forget homecoming's coming up. You gotta get your homecoming carnation, and
Right.
stuff like that. So in between that kind of stuff, we would tell stories, and they were always centered around something that happened, right? So oh, I was on campus today and I watched, this guy fall out of a car. Just weird stuff like that, right? Because on
Right.
campus,
The
something's
walk of shame.
always happened. Yeah.
You saw how
Something's
many of
always
those did you
happening,
see
right?
and whatnot, right?
Or I had this situation where at the time I was living with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And at the radio station where we're at, there's this guy who always told me how good looking my girlfriend was. So that was the story, right? I'd be like,
Right.
Jason gave me a ride back to my apartment, and he wouldn't stop talking about how good looking my girlfriend was. And I'm like, do you find that odd, Miles? And then Miles would, because he knew who this
Chime
guy
in.
was too, and so we would tell these little kind of weird things that happened to us. So after we
Very
got out
cool.
of college, I got this all going, and it just continued because essentially we were doing this on the phone every week or two. We would, touch base because we don't live near each other now. We didn't live near each other then. Only time we came together was at college, and so he's actually from Chicagoland, and I'm from downstate Illinois, and now I'm in St. Louis, and he is up on the river in Iowa, and so close to the Quad Cities, right? So
Okay, sure.
uh, so we're not anywhere near each other, but we would talk each every couple of weeks or whatever. We talk anyway and see what was going on, and that became we would do this anyway, and so that became the show because it's just kind of fun. And then we, break each other's balls, whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
as we're telling the story, and that just all became fun. And so uh, we've just done it. And I thought for sure we'd run out of material a long time ago, but as things happen, life happens, right? And so we both had
Yeah.
kids. Kids became material. We both got married, had kids, and
Yep.
have
And then
jobs.
you're different. You're different than you were. So you're actually have a
Yeah,
whole set of ideas.
everything
You're
changed.
literally a whole person. Yeah.
So yeah, everything just took off, and just weird interactions with people, and it's just full of really weird and odd stories. We call it the strange and funny happenings in the lives of two Midwesterners is kind of the tagline, and that's really what it is. I mean, it's one week it's embarrassing stories about farting on the bus or something, and the next thing you know, we're running into
You don't
weird
actually fart on the bus. You let one loose on the bus. You
well,
try to hold on. You never actually do it. You just
it,
lack containment ability.
it wasn't me. It was, the funniest letting one
Sure.
loose story for me was my son. We got the opportunity to go to Europe, and we were on a train heading from I believe it was Germany into Switzerland, and we're on we're on the train, and he rips one really loud, like, and there's people everywhere, right? And then like
Yeah.
everybody's looking at him, and I was sitting there and I'm laughing. And then later I go, why did you do that? And he goes, I was just thinking it was a different language, so it would be okay. I don't know what his logic was.
He farted in a different language. He farts in English,
He
so
farted in
it would be
English.
okay.
He was thinking it's a different language. I'm like, well, it's just a fart. Everybody farts. I don't know what you're doing. So embarrassing. He didn't obviously he wasn't even embarrassed because he thought, well, no one will know what this is. But yeah, it was hilarious. I don't It was just one of the weirdest I'm like, where's this logic coming from, kid? He was like a, what, I think 12, 13, 14 years old maybe at the time. So,
Now he's the
that
CEO of Disney.
yeah, it's that logic, that kid logic. Oh, well, they won't know what this is.
It is. I have a worse story than that, but I'll spare you. But
So
that's
yeah, I
great
mean,
though. Like, yeah, it's like I'm gonna fart in a different language. They won't even know.
yeah, they won't
But
know.
it is funny, like the fart versus like burp culture, because I heard in like
Mhm.
Japan, I think if you fart, it's rude, but if you burp, it's
Right.
okay. Something.
As if you're eating, I think in some Asian cultures, yeah, it's a sign that the food was good.
Right. There's something to it, something about the
Right.
completeness of it. So, there are some interesting cultural sounds that
Yeah.
we make that
Farting
some
doesn't
people
seem to pass in any language. Any.
No, it doesn't. Well, it passes all right. It just passes.
I think the
So
other part was he didn't think it was going to be that loud, but well, it was loud.
for sure. Well, that's awesome. So this is how long ago? And he was just a teenager.
Yeah, so this is he was like early teens. But this is what I don't know, 2017, I think, 2016, 2017.
Oh, okay.
So
So he's
not too
just
long
about
ago, but
20-ish.
yeah.
Young man.
Yeah, well now he's 20 something, yeah.
Now he farts with purpose.
Yeah, now I don't know if he'd do it in another language anymore, but
He's got a constantly extended finger ready to go,
hey. Pull my finger.
ready to be pulled.
But that's the kind of great fodder that you'll get on the show. But it's always just weird. I mean, it's people have told me, I'm not from the East Coast or anything, and so people tell me though it's a very Midwestern view on humor. I've been told that, and so I'm like, oh, okay, so. But I don't, that's not something that I can perceive easily. So, because
Yeah.
it's just humor to me. I'm just like, oh, that's funny. Farting is funny.
Right. Right. And it's been, and it's funny, and there are definitely levels of it. Like I'm a dark humor person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I think I go right to like the worst thing someone can say, and I don't know why I do that, but I'll sit there and find myself chuckling. Like
Yeah.
I watched Will Smith hit Chris Rock,
Uh-huh.
and when he said, "Keep your wife's mouth out or
Keep
name
my
out your
wife's mouth
mouth,"
out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and Chris Rock had the joke at the tip of his tongue, and he pulled it back. It was,
Yeah.
"I will, as long as you keep other dudes out of your wife's mouth."
Right. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
he didn't say it. And
Right. Well,
I got to give
I
him
thought
credit
that
for
was
that.
the whole thing. I thought was a setup when it
I
happened.
thought
I'm
so
like,
too, but
total
in
total
hindsight,
setup. Yeah. But
yeah,
it wasn't.
allegedly it's not. And I watched the new Chappelle show, the Dreamers one, the new one, and he
Mm-hmm.
actually references it because he says he called Chris Rock after it happened,
Oh, really?
and
Okay.
he answered the phone and said, "You're the only guy I picked up for. He's been getting called from Oprah and like Obama and all these other
Right.
people
That's
asking him what."
wild.
So
That's just too wild. I'm like, I
it's
think it was a
interesting.
setup, but
Yeah, the first time it really did look like a setup. But then you
yeah.
watch like how Chris Rock got like heated and like couldn't talk for a second. And
Right.
that's that fight or flight cognitive dissonance thing that goes on in your head. And I think
Hmm.
he kind of lost, I
It lost
whatever.
his train there.
But like
Train of thought. Yeah.
that Mr. Smith won an award after that. The same.
Right, yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
I'm like, who in their right mind in the middle of, like one of the largest television broadcasts that happens in the year walks up and does that? You know what I'm saying? That's just not
Yeah.
normal behavior.
Right. And he's had some personal stuff going on that week. That was the week when his
Even
wife was talking
so,
about the
even
son's
so, yeah.
best friend or something. Oh, absolutely. Oh, that gives him no right. It's more of
Right.
just like I get where it happened, but there's like it's ridiculous to get to that level from where you are.
Yeah, just weird. Just
I mean,
totally weird.
it's something about when you have that amount of power to wield, like refraining from using it on someone is probably a better bet than
Right?
using.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what I mean? I mean, he's
Just
taller,
slough it off
bigger,
and
he's a
go,
bigger
yeah,
star than Chris Rock. He's more, I guess, in a global sense, he's better known, right, as an actor.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
the weird thing is, I don't know, it was this week or last week, but the guy who was in the courtroom in California, I think it was, who jumped over he was getting sentenced, and all of a sudden he just
yes,
the bench and jumped over. you know, that's essentially what Will Smith did, and no one stopped him, and no one stopped Will Smith. It's like, really, I mean, just because he's Will Smith, you don't think he's a threat walking up on the stage when he's not supposed to be on the stage? I mean, they all had the
right,
script, right? There's nothing on,
yep,
if it's true, there's nothing in the script that says Will Smith walks up on stage and slaps Chris Rock. And
right. Good point.
there's all these people who are obviously of our targets in this
Yeah.
audience, right? And
Yeah.
no one acted.
It's weird because like it is weird. If you saw
Who's the
Will Smith
security
walking up
team
to
that
you,
was
I guess you
there?
would assume the guy's not going to slap me out of nowhere. I
It
guess I
was
would
all
assume
bizarre,
that.
all bizarre.
But it
Yeah,
was a whole thing. But
yeah.
I mean, it was interesting to watch.
That's some ego right there. I'll tell you that right now.
And
You know what I mean?
I, yeah,
You
it's
got to
crazy.
have big fucking ego to think it's okay for me to do this, and no
Yeah,
one's going to be mad. You know what I mean?
and then somehow be the victim of it after.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I didn't mean, I was having a bad week. Oh, yeah. Well, when I have a bad week, I usually, find
yeah,
the
I only pocketed
largest,
40 million this week.
yeah, that's right. Find the largest public display of something happening, walk into it and do something inappropriate. That's what I do. So I don't know.
So
How do we
sweetie,
get on this subject anyway?
so your show is it literally weekly? Do you get
Yeah,
together every week?
every week. Yeah. Mhm.
Is it scheduled day and time, or is it
Yeah, so
just
typically over the years we usually did Sunday night or Monday night. Right now we're on Monday nights, and the reason for that typically was we did Sunday
because
nights
you no
because
longer have a football team?
yeah, no, I'm not into. Miles is very much into football. That's why it switches
I'm
over
just
on
kidding.
the two night. Honestly, it does. He's like, okay, Bears are playing. Let's
Oh,
do
Barry, yeah, the Bears.
the Bears. Yeah, for me, I'm
The
like, I don't
Bears.
care. And but it started out on Sunday nights every week because we both had kids pretty early into the run here, and that was the best. We would do it late on Sunday when everybody was sleeping, and it wasn't a family time, right? Everybody's got to get situated for work and what have you. So it just worked out, and then it shifted from Sunday to Monday depending on oddly enough, the television schedule. So football
Sure,
games, Game of Thrones
makes
for a
sense.
while pushed it to Monday because Game of Thrones was on Sunday,
Oh
and
yeah,
Walking Dead for a while. So right now we're on a Monday schedule, and I don't know why because there's nothing happening on Sunday, and maybe it's still football. I don't know, but yeah, we
okay.
we typically I'm what do you want to say? I can be very regimented, and so I love that um, kind of system. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
know Sunday this is what I'm gonna do, right? And
and it's a
he's
great
not
excuse to get
regimented.
to catch up and always do it. Right? It must be a
Oh
fun
yeah,
thing for a guy
we
that you
always
know for what 30 years now.
yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Uh, Probably about 30, 34. Yeah, something like
Oh
that.
wow, yeah. So
The but yeah, the I love the regimented nature of it, and Miles is not so regimented. In fact, you'll hear if you were to could brave through all the shows, you'll hear several of them where I'm just berating him because he doesn't answer on Sunday night. I'm like, we've only been fucking doing this for 2 decades, and you can't answer whenever I call you or whatever. We were doing Skype at that point,
right,
and I'm like, he's like, oh, I forgot. I'm like, holy shit. But
man.
we do catch up every time we talk. We talk for I don't know, at least a half hour or more every time we connect. That's not recorded. That's not part of it. And then
Right.
we record after that. And the terrible thing is sometimes we'll be talking and we're like, oh shit, I don't have a story. I should save this for the recording. And then we end up stopping and just starting recording. So
Yeah.
because we don't just like you and I did. It's
Yeah.
basically you jump on and go. There's not
Yeah.
any kind of discussion ahead of time where it's like, I need to get through these talking points. I want to talk about the URL. I want to say static radio 5 times, okay? And then now, I gotta sell my book. No, it's not. It's just we come out of the gate. It's like rodeo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I,
Just
I was just on a podcast called Idiot Mystic, and they reached out to me through that matchmaker you
oh
know,
yeah, hmm
dating site,
yeah.
the podcasting
The
dating site.
matchmaker side. Yeah.
And it was a 2-hour conversation. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, before you go, do you want to plug anything?" And I'm like, okay. Like, it's like,
Whatever.
I'm just enjoying the conversation. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right,
that's really
exactly.
cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to monetize this and do like ads and just have this be my thing. But you know what? I've talked to some very interesting people. I've been blessed.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's hard. We have early, when was that? Probably 2007. We actually were monetized for a very short period of time. Maybe it was 2005. I had to look it up, but we were on Mevio, which was Adam
Yeah.
Curry's company. So Adam Curry, after
Right.
he invented podcast, or after he and Dave Weiner, actually Dave Weiner did all the
The
heavy lifting.
Podfather.
Yeah, Adam Curry is good looking and can talk, and so he's the
He had the real
politician of
long hair back then.
podcasting. Yeah, that's right. He set up a thing called Pod Show, and we weren't on Pod Show, and then Pod Show eventually changed its name to Mevio, and at that point we were on Mevio for, I don't know, probably about a year or so, and then Mevio folded or transitioned to some other thing, and they dropped everybody. And so, yeah, our show was on Mevio for about a year, I guess. Maybe longer. I had to look. I mean, I had to look through the shows to see if what the dates were, because I didn't write anything down, unfortunately.
Right.
But we were on
Yeah,
Mevio
you
for
don't
a
even
while.
think about what it is until it's over and you look in
Right.
hindsight. Like
Yeah,
we were
and
talking,
all these
I
things,
was
yeah,
talking with
come
people
to my
about like
head.
wars. It's like the Civil War wasn't the Civil War until you look back. Like World War
But yeah,
One wasn't World War One
right.
until World War Two happened.
It
It
was
was
it
just
was
the
just a
great,
little. It was a skirmish with the Germans, and then oh
right,
wait,
the Great War, right?
who
Yeah.
who all? Let me make a list. Who all was involved? The whole fucking world. Holy moly! I think that's catchy. It's. I think
Yeah.
Stan Lee came up with that because it's an
Yeah, no
alliteration,
kidding,
right?
right?
A
It's
world
got the
war.
alliteration and everything.
Yeah, he's
Peter
Captain
Parker and Bruce
Alliteration.
Banner and Lois Lane. Well, not Lois Lane, actually. That's a
No,
star.
not Lois
I wonder,
Lane.
did DC culturally
Peter Parker.
appropriate Stan Lee?
I think alliteration was kind of one of those things that came through the 40s and 50s that people just loved it. You know what I mean? It's kind of
I think
punny.
it played to it for sure.
I mean, still people do now today, but
Yeah, yeah, it's fun.
yeah, it's fun.
Like,
So they just always catered to it. I think it was a little more, because then they had to do the Mid-Atlantic. Peter Parker today. He was in New York and he was swinging around playing Spider-Man.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying. In other news,
In other news,
the Ruskies have
Bruce
crossed the
Banner is
lines.
found in his underwear.
He was bitten by a spider, I tell you.
That's right. That's right. J. Jonah Jameson. Holy
He
moly.
is as big as an inch if he was a mile. Whatever
The
that those old timey
old
statements
timey
are.
things, exactly.
You just need one of those slide whistles from Groove is in the Heart. From
That's right.
like and with a gong and some rattles and
Yeah.
so you were actually terrestrial radio before you did podcasting, or did you go right into a digital format?
So we were on the college radio, which had
Right. I remember that,
yeah.
but I mean, like when you started your own private
Oh no,
thing.
right into digital. So
Oh, okay.
because
So
my
you didn't even have that.
no, yeah, we had, both had regular jobs, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like we're um the weird thing is I have a degree in cinema and photography. And so does Miles. We both have the same degree. We got the same degree. And then after college, I mean, the thing was you can go to New York, you can go to Los Angeles, you could go to Chicago maybe at the time. There wasn't a lot going
Right.
on. I mean, there's stuff going on, but and
You think the 80s, right, with Landis and some of the other stuff was Chicago, probably put Chicago back on the map.
yeah, but it's like for any of that kind of stuff. And I have friends who from college who did that, right? But this would be the earlier 90s is when I was there.
Right.
So but I went and I actually did I got corporate stuff. So I went into the corporate world for a while and did stuff there. And then it just morphed into, what it is today, which is I don't really do anything with cinema photography. Those all those jobs spun off into other things, and I have a nice a nice cushy stable means of making money, and so does Miles, and so there's no point, you know what I mean? So
Right.
this is the creative outlet, because we're both creative people, and if you're a creative person, you got to have an outlet, or else you do bad
You
things, I
take drugs or do
think.
something else. You're doing you're doing something to take care of that itch. And
Yeah,
it's
no,
better to
I
scratch it this
honestly,
way.
there's so many creative people who think they have to be in a mold, I think, or whatever, and can't, survive in the real world, as people say. But no, you got to have something, because otherwise, then you veer into drinking or drugs, or just doing, or you just go into bad places sometimes, because I think that's just part of the territory, don't you? With
Sure.
creative folks. I mean, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with them.
Well, no, I mean, creativity goes into a weird darkness, even though there's beauty that comes
Yeah,
out of it.
yeah,
There's a weird darkness you have to go to get
yeah,
to that emotion, right? To get a feeling.
yeah,
So I
and
think they delve in deeper. They pick at scabs. I mean, you're
yeah,
going to bleed if you pick at scabs.
right. But there's something soothing about doing that.
There is. And well, you have to do it. I mean, it's kind of like a compulsion because if you
Compulsion,
don't, then you're
exactly.
doing something else. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so this just became the thing, right? So it was, it was better than the other stuff, especially if you're gonna, progress in the regular world, the daylight world, as some people call it. We're all night people in the daylight world, right? Um,
Right.
and so if you're going to make it in the daylight world, you need to have a hobby that gets that out of you, so you can,
Yeah.
so you can do the stupid Atlantic voice and make funny voices and be kooky, because then during the day, I mean, you don't always get to do that, because everybody's got to
Yeah.
be,
It's a work hard, play hard attitude too.
yeah, you got to be stoic and serious, and you can't, because then otherwise you don't progress in
Exactly.
whatever we call this thing. So yeah, no, it's been weird like that. But no terrestrial radio, to get back to your question. The
Yeah.
and we're bouncing around a little bit, but the weird thing is
No, that's totally fine. I'm loving it. I'm loving the conversation. So,
we were doing this for a while, and I so over time, I love to try different things. This is all part of the creative process, as it were. And I contacted XM satellite radio, and I got a call back. And the hilarious thing was, I was, and this will be in the days. Oh gosh, when was this now? I
Howard
can't.
Stern just moved over.
It was pre. So Howard Stern came to St. Louis. It was pre Howard Stern coming to St. Louis, I believe. So that's been a while ago. Maybe I was no, maybe he was in St. Louis. Anyway, somewhere in the early days, it had. Only thing I can remember is I had a candy bar phone. That's what I can remember from this. Is I had like a Nokia, one of those Nokias that you can drive
Yep.
nails with.
Yep.
And I was at my office, and my cell phone rang, which never happened during the day at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who could this be? And it was XM Satellite Radio. I had sent them a note, and they were getting back to me. And I talked to some programming guy at XM, and I thought it was hilarious, what he said. So I can't remember what it was like. It wasn't lunchtime yet, and so I was like, oh shit, do I got to be somewhere, you know? But I'm gonna take this phone call, because at the time, whenever my phone rang, it generally meant that my wife needed me to do something, or something was wrong, and because
Right.
this was all before, texting was fashionable,
And you were still answering the phone just like a
and you
good man.
still answered the phone. Yeah, you still had that beat into you. So I answer it, and I get this XM guy like, hey, this is, I can't remember his name, Ralph or something, from XM Satellite Radio, and you had sent a note in, and it came to my desk, and I wanted to talk to you about this show you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, fantastic. Thanks for calling me back. I'm like, what? And so then I had to go find some place, because I'm walking around, and he's like, oh, it sounds really interesting. I went and I listened and la la la, and I'm like, oh, this is great, right? And he goes, I tell you what, I think it's interesting. He goes, but first, why don't you get on a radio station there in St. Louis, and then after you do that, then give me a call. I'm like, what
Oh.
the fuck?
They didn't even get it back then when they were the
No,
new. When they were the new, they didn't even understand
they
what they
didn't
were.
get it at all. And I'm like, I just was like,
That's like
okay, thanks.
crazy, right?
Yeah, I was like,
Oh my
okay, thanks,
gosh.
no problem, right? I mean, what am I going to say? I wasn't in my
Right.
head. I'm like, this guy is obviously not understanding this situation.
Yeah.
And then now I mean, where's XM, right? It got sucked up by Sirius, and where's Sirius? I mean, no, do you know anybody has Sirius satellite that's not a truck driver or something? Holy
I
moly!
do, but only because we do road trips to Vegas and it's
Oh, well, there you
four
do have
hours,
Sirius.
4 to 5 hours. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah. It's
well,
10 $9 a month or something.
you're one of the few these days, my friend.
You
Those
know, yeah, it's, and
probably
to your point, it's like the only reason is we do lose cell coverage on the drive.
there you
A
go.
little section where just enough,
Yeah, out in the middle of
just
the
enough where
desert.
you can't get the Spotify through it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yeah, so I mean, I was just like, okay. And then I'm like, at that point, I was like, well, the thing was, I didn't want to do, at that point, I'm like, this terrestrial radio is nowhere. This is not the
right.
where to go. And
And it was already dying at the point, and
oh,
you already
yeah,
saw that
already
because you
done.
weren't, it
Yeah.
wasn't an interest of yours to begin with.
No, no. And I had this, but I thought, well, the reason I even contacted them was because they were doing different programming at that time on XM. And
Right.
I
And
thought, hey,
you could be vulgar or do more adult stuff or
right.
just be
We
different.
could we could slipstream right in there in some kind of
Right.
compilation thing,
Like Opie and
and
Anthony moved over,
yeah,
those kinds of things.
and they have multiple channels. They could just have some channel that's just random shit, and we're on that. So it was just an idea to get just an idea, and I'm like, oh, I should just let's see what happens. And that's typically how all this comes about. The reason I'm talking to you is about a year ago. I'm like, oh, I think I'll be a guest on things. Let's see what happens. And that's when I had started doing stuff. Before that, I really didn't have any. I mean, it was. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I even guessed it on anybody else's show
Are you enjoying
before.
that part of it? I mean,
Oh
how
no,
many
I am. I
guests have you
am.
done now?
Oh
How many type of
gosh,
guest appearances?
got at least more than 50 at this point, easily.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, at least more. Yeah, definitely more than 50, I think. But the tools weren't there. It wasn't easy. You know what I'm saying? So now with like you talked about Matchmaker and Pod Match and all these things, it's easy to connect with people. Whereas before, to be honest with you, I poo-pooed it because that was what a lot of people back in like 2008. Almost every podcast was about other people's podcasts because that was one of the trajectories of podcasting. And so everybody got on each other's shows talking about podcasts. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm not fucking doing that. We're talking about funny stuff. We're talking about goofy stuff. And
Right. Because it's a comedian thing, right? I mean, or not a
right, yeah,
comedian, a
yeah,
community thing.
yeah,
That's what podcasting, they always say, the podcasting community, because it really
yeah.
became like this bottom up kind of movement.
Now I am aware that I'm talking about podcasts on your podcast. So just so that everybody
I
doesn't
love, you know,
ding me on that. It's been 20 some years now. So
I mean, and that's amazing. And full disclosure, I emailed Adam Curry, or I
Mhm,
emailed an email that I thought might have been Adam Curry's.
mhm,
It was like Adam at Adam Curry, and I sent him an email saying that you were going to be on the show, and
mhm.
hopefully he could join us. I did not get a response,
Yeah, I don't. I'm
and
so
I
surprised.
also do not hold it against him. I just want to be clear that I was hoping that maybe there would be some click that would be so cool just to have him pop up for
Oh,
a
that would
second.
be great. I would love to. I would love
Because I
to.
think he'd have fun with you. Because I think he'd admire you. And what I think is so amazing is one of the not top 50, but one of the first 50. That is,
Yeah,
and you're still around like that.
yeah.
How many of the first 50 are still around? That's a
Not a
curious
lot
question.
because I've really tried. So in just to affirm you, it's adam@curry.com because I've actually got email from him at
Okay, I
that
did
email
email
address.
Adam at curry.com.
I don't know
I'll
if he's
forward
the
you the
one
email copy.
answering it, but I do know that I have that email and I have emailed that email and gotten a response from a person who said they were Adam Curry. So,
Oh, very cool.
and a long time ago too. So,
I did
yeah,
send it. Let me see. I sent it to Adam at curry.com. Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
He may
I
have
sent it on
people now, but
December 9th. I
back at
sent
the
it.
time, yeah, yeah.
You know what? He's going to see it tomorrow and
Yeah.
he's going to be like, hey,
Oh, I should
I
have
saw
done
your
that.
email. When are you guys doing your show?
Yeah, I should have done. Just have him on anyway. Just tell him it's
Oh,
still
what are
happening.
you kidding me? I'm like, I'm having it on right now,
That's
sir. Did you
right.
not know it's literally happening right now? What a shock that you happen to be calling right now.
Oh my goodness. So to answer your question on the first 50, in when COVID happened, uh, so I had when COVID happened, I had a little more time on my hands because of everybody did, and I came up with this idea called Priorcaster, and it's actually a website you can go to at priorcaster.com, and I
So
wanted
this is
to
pre-COVID or during COVID?
right when COVID started, I guess.
Okay, so
So
early 2020, early
early
mid 2020.
2020, yeah.
Okay, cool. I just want to get a time frame
Yeah,
because like
yeah.
I very specific.
So the deal was, I was like, I got some time on my hands. I would love to talk to the people who were doing these things, before podcasting. I knew a lot of them. I interacted with them because part of the thing once we started recording was I was constantly looking for other people recording. And I did find a few. I mean, at the time, I found a few and I talked to them. And actually, one of the people that I talked to, his name is Frank Nora, and he runs a thing called the Overnightscape, which he's been doing since 2000. And he and I have communicated all these years, off and on throughout the years. And good because I thought, wow, there's somebody else doing this, and he has a totally different approach to things, but it's fascinating. And if he lives in New Jersey and goes into New York every day for work, and so he actually most of his shows are that traveling. So he's going
Right.
into New York. He's talking about all kinds of stuff while he's walking around New York. It didn't start out that way, but that's what it is right now. But so yeah, I've known these people, some of these people for a long time. Well, I wanted to go back and catch more of them. Well, a lot of them are gone. I can't find them. And I mean, these are people that I, at the time, pre-podcasting, so back from 99 until 2004, I had interaction with, right? So
Right.
mostly distant, so emails and things like that. And yeah, and there's, if there's anybody who's listening who did a show before 2004, hit me up. So boblement@gmail.com. And I would love to talk to you. And so I've got to talk to a few people, but a lot of them aren't around anymore. I mean, it is interesting um, how much of a turnover there is. There was a guy, and I can't remember his name, but he did a thing called The Basement Show. And he was such a helpful guy to me because he was doing that just prior to us doing our show. And I found it after we started recording. I used to email him quite regularly, asking him about stuff and, setting things up and streaming things and all kinds of stuff. And he was incredibly helpful. But the Basement Show is gone. There's nothing left. I've looked and looked and looked, and I still do. So when this Priorcaster idea came up, I got it going, and I was looking for them, and I still do. Every once in a while, if I've got a minute, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I think I'll look up the Basement Show, see if I can dig into anything and find it. Nothing. And the terrible thing is, I also looked into Curry's list, and it's gone. So even on the Internet Archive, so that's a lot of digging on Internet Archive. You can go back in
Right.
his website, but it does not. He switched stuff, and there's no archive of the old stuff.
I did an internet search for it. I was trying to find it because I
Yeah,
was hoping to find a list I could share with you. Like
yeah.
I didn't do much digging, but like we had a good connection. So I was like, you know what? Let me see if I could find something cool that I could bring, which I didn't bring anything
That's
cool.
well, and the same thing with the first iTunes list, right? Because
Yeah.
I love to tell this story, and people don't even realize it. And then when they hear it, they're like, "Huh?" But that list that Curry kept, which I think he kept it for a while, so it was like
You did.
they got into the hundreds. But the first people who were doing podcasts that would contact him, obviously, and you could get on the list. Then that became iTunes podcasting. So between that and some PBS shows and a few other commercial things, right out of the gate, podcasting was Adam Curry's list. And he's mentioned it because I think I heard him on Rogan when he was on there one of
Yes,
those
he
times.
has.
He mentioned that, and I remember that, and I've told it to people, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm
Yeah.
like, because I got a note from a guy who I
He
still talk
curated the
to.
list.
Yeah,
It's
he
like
created the
the
list.
grand
Yeah,
poobah keeper of the list. Like there was a thing, the
yeah.
list. Like
And it was the simplest thing. It was just like literally a list, like you would
it
have a
was
checklist.
literally like a CSV file, if that.
Yeah,
Like some
exactly,
sort, almost like
exactly.
literally.
But there was a
Yeah.
guy.
I
His
don't even
name,
know if CSV was a thing yet, to be honest.
yeah, I think it was. That was
Like
Thomas Separate Value.
It was
Yeah,
a Lotus 123 spreadsheet
yeah.
using
But
DOS 5.1.
I got an email from a dude named Scott Baker, who I've known again since early 2000, and he says, "Hey, do you know you're on iTunes?" And I go, "What?" And that's how I found out. And then I went and looked around. Now the funny thing is, we've been kicked off of iTunes at least 3 or 4 times. The first round of kicking off was whenever they got all holy for a while, and anybody who was cussing and whatnot, they would kick them off. And then they made the explicit tag, so we got back on for a while. And so it's really it's hard to find. So I say these things, right, and I always feel bad because it's hard for me, other than to give you the shows, to say yes, this really happened, because all this supporting corroborating evidence has just been obliterated.
Right. Right.
um
Literally, you just have like hopefully there's a metadata tag to the timestamp of the original recording or something,
well,
or
the problem with the original
something.
recording, we didn't record an MP3 until in the 2000s. So everything was real media when we first
Right. Oh
started.
my gosh. Real media. Oh
And
my
I've converted it
gosh.
all over to MP3. And then we did I think at least a year or two in real media. And then
Media player.
yeah,
Oh,
right. And
wow.
then we went to QuickTime because I lost, here's my little deviousness. So uh, I finagled a real media server at the time, which was thousands of dollars at work. And then I used it for myself mostly. And well, I got to the point where I could not justify it, and it went away. And so then I
Yeah.
made them QuickTime movies because I had access to a QuickTime encoder at
The
that
Apple.
point.
Right.
And so
QuickTime's
we
the
were,
Apple media,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the acronym was for it. MOV, I
Uh,
think, but
yeah, it was MOV.
it was
Yeah.
MOV, but it was just audio.
Right. Yeah, it was. It was a
And
weird,
I did
it
that
might
for
have been
several
AUD
years.
even or something that you had for audio or something.
That's
That's
uh,
not MP3. Yeah, it was
that's
something else. Yeah. Not Wave,
AUD.
obviously.
AUD is the Audacity
Oh, that's right. Oh,
extension.
that's yeah.
So we did a QuickTime for a few years, and then finally MP3. Uh, MP3 was there, but I didn't have access to any kind of encoding to do MP3. At the time, it would have cost money. I think money's always been a barrier because I'm a really super cheap skate. And so if I can finagle somebody else to pay for it, then I do, right? So that's
Right.
my angle. And so yeah, I got the real
It's called a
media.
superpower.
Yeah, I got the real media server paid
You should
for.
be Larry LeMent.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I got a deal for you. So we went through iterations. So yeah, all the MP3s, actually some of them didn't become MP3s until a couple of years ago because I converted them all from those other formats
Right.
to finally put them, because it was 5 years before we were on before podcasting, and 5 years before WordPress.
Well, I would think the file itself would have some kind of timestamp, I hope, right? Even if it's
Well,
a .mov or
I had
something
to
else.
re-encode everything, so it's whatever
Oh,
the
so
same.
those are even gone.
Yeah, I still have the
Oh,
original. I still have the original real media files, but I don't know if there's any. I mean, I guess there's something to read it. I don't know.
yeah. I just wonder. I wonder if back then they had date like a date stamp as a like
I
a
don't know.
properties tag or
I have to
something.
look into it. They probably
It wouldn't
did.
hurt because like then it definitely
Yeah,
would. You could definitely you could definitely
yeah,
put
but
it
that's,
chronologically the way you did it.
that's all fakeable. Whenever
I
you don't want to pay for things, you learn how to fake a lot of stuff. So.
I was an early adopter of online dating,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a lot of bad dates. A lot.
Mm.
I went on a lot of first dates, a few second, and even fewer third. Right, third and later because you whittle down very quickly.
Right.
But if I had any thought of making a book or like a coffee table book about my experiences of online dating, because I was an early adopter, I was on
Mhm.
date.com back in
Oh boy.
2003. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just kind of the same thing. It's like if I would have just known that it would be a moment to look back on, I would have
Right.
probably put some kind of time or effort into documenting it in some way.
Right.
But
That's the hard part, right? You don't know at the time when it's
you don't know until
happening.
you're
You're
in
just
it,
trying to,
and then it's over.
yeah,
Yeah, and then you look back.
you want to experience what you're doing, and then you don't think about afterwards that you're like, oh yeah, because literally, I mean, every year I was like, I'm surprised we're still doing this. I thought for sure we weren't going to.
So of the three formats between yourself and your co-host,
My partner.
interviewing someone else
Hmm.
or being interviewed by someone else,
Hmm.
do you have now a preference that you've done like all three? Do you have one that you like the most?
Oh no, I will tell you hands down, talking to Miles every week has been some of the most fun I've ever had. So
He's got to be a brother at this point.
yeah, it's that's well, yeah, a brother from another mother. The
Sure.
but yeah, um, we're not enough the same. How we get along is beyond me sometimes because we're not, talk about odd couple kind of a
My old
situation.
co-host and I are similar like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'd be Felix. I'm very fastidious on certain things, and he would be Oscar for sure if you want to take it to the Neil Simon thing. And that's the fun of it is because we are so different, and but we get along great, and we have an understanding to where we can kind of poke fun at each other. Really, I mean, deep poking of fun to where everybody doesn't go home and cry or anything. And
Yeah.
so yeah, but that by far, I mean, been so enjoyable, and it's still so enjoyable. I mean, this week we just had a show that went off, into territory that I would never ever thought that would happen. I mean, you start out, and then the next thing you know, you're in the far reaches of weirdness. So, it's not weird in the negative sense, but just in a fun sense. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I would say
Which
that's probably my thing.
what date was that? Is that on Static Radio on YouTube? Where
Yeah,
can we
you can
find that
go
episode?
anywhere.
Which
It's
specific episode is that?
the
Because I don't
latest
want you to
one.
spoil it. Because I'm gonna watch it later.
Oh,
So
well, there's some audio problems, but I'm not going to go back at that. But if you do listen to it, it's something weird on the audio for some reason. But it's called the Cryptid Pitch,
okay,
and it's
I'll take a
it's
look.
the latest one as of today, as of this taping, as of this recording,
Very nice.
on January 17th, 2024. But it was just a weird, fun time. Now but that's what happens. I mean, it's like magic or something. Sometimes it doesn't happen, sometimes it does, and because it's all kind of without a net kind of a situation, and we're both very comfortable that who knows. I know we have all this stuff out there in our catalog or whatever you want to say, and I know some of that stuff right at this point in time is very, very not what people like now, in terms of content and what we say, and we're making fun of people and making fun of ourselves even, and
Right. It's funny. You can't even be self-deprecating anymore.
right, yeah. I
Like
always
it's almost like how dare you be a victim to yourself? Like you're making yourself a victim. I'm like I am.
right.
I thought I was being funny.
Yeah, I was just trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a if we want to get into that tangent, I always say right now
Yeah,
in
I'm
time.
along for the ride, my friend. I love all talking all different kinds of things. So please, I don't get to share. This is my first real podcast in like, or I've had maybe two in a month.
Oh, okay.
and I am exorbitantly curious about you. So share away. Yeah,
Oh,
let's go down that tangent.
well, I always these days I always say people are overly sincere, right? You can't laugh at the embarrassing situations that people find themselves in, and so forth. And I think I think that to me, I think that's bad because you can't always say, "Oh, poor you." You know what I
Right.
mean? Oh,
And you
poor
have to be able
you.
to
I
laugh
mean,
at yourself.
yeah, and you have to be able to laugh at situations because
You have
you
to be able to
know,
not take it always so seriously, because
you,
when you show that you can't, that's when you show you've been corrupted.
yeah, and everybody is so. I mean, they're so sincere. Like, oh, you poor person. Oh, my son this week. A little taste here, I suppose. He says, Dad, you're like a cryptid. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, every picture I see of you is blurry and out of focus. And everybody else will be in crisp focus and you're just kind of blurry in the background. And so I'm like, what? And so, he was like, yeah, so you're just like a cryptid living in this world because you can't ever seem to be, like normal person in here. And so we riff on that for a while. But
Yeah.
I just think that's kind of funny. And it's like, I said, well, partially because no one wants to have a photo taken anymore. You have to do a selfie of some kind.
Right.
And
Right.
I've got typically I'm the tallest with the longest arms, and so either I'm taking the selfie, and so I'm off to the side somewhere, or I'm tall enough to where I have to be in the back. And so I'm never the person up front, and so it always happens. I'm taking the picture, so I'm like this half my head's on there, and then it's half somewhat blurry because you do the wide angle and everything's kind of fisheye. So, but anyway, it's just like it's a circumstance, right? And
Yeah.
this isn't too terrible. I mean, there's we talk about Miles always having to go in for colonoscopies and snaking shit
Oh,
up his butt and talking about that
that's always
embarrassing
fun.
situation.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I,
look, we could go in what movies 15 years ago. I mean, we're talking 2008. I don't think a single movie could be made that was like that was made in 2008 almost. There's
I know
something
it's
offensive
weird,
in
isn't it?
almost every movie.
Now the
I'd
bad
say
thing
maybe
is,
10 might have been the cutoff or something, right?
eh,
Maybe 10 or 12 right around there, but
it
it's
depends.
crazy how like it's just I watched a movie and I had to turn it off. I couldn't even follow it. It didn't have. And I'm not criticizing the style because maybe the style's changed and I just haven't changed with it.
Right.
So I'll take the blame, but it's like I just haven't changed with the times in that way.
Yeah, I don't know. But nobody wants to talk about that stuff. They're always like, oh yeah, like I have a tendency to in the I try to not to do it now because I'm getting older, but I fall down a lot. I used to fall down. I hurt myself constantly, and
Oh wow.
so like I have really bad knees, and one knee will just give out, and then it'll pop, and then my leg swells up, and so I've hurt my ankle and hurt my knee, and then we make fun of it, like, oh, there goes Bob, popped the knee again, because that what
Right.
I was mowing the grass, right, and I forget what I was doing, but anyway, I got off the mower and I got onto the ground to get something or something somewhere. Anyway, I tried to get up, pop my leg, right, and then it
Right.
starts swelling up immediately. So I'm out in my front yard, laying on the ground by the mower, like I died of a heart attack or something,
Yeah.
and and I and I
The
can't
mower's running, right?
I can't yeah I can't get up.
Oh my.
I literally because you can't bend my leg because it's in so
Oh
much pain.
yeah.
And so I happened to have the fob for one of our cars, and I hit the
Panic
panic
button.
button, and it's going honk, honk, honk. I see my son look out the window at the honking, right? And so I turn it off, and I'm waving at him. He shuts the window, ignores me, I guess, didn't see me. So I have to do it
This
again.
reminds me of like a commercial. Next thing, sprinklers needs to come on, like a
Yeah,
big trash truck has to come squeaking by.
well, I got bit by ants because there
Oh
was
my!
ants there, and I started getting bitten by
Oh,
the ants. So I had to roll away,
ah,
and so finally my wife comes out. She's like, "What's going on?" I go, "I hurt my leg, and I cannot get myself off the ground." And so anyway, she helped me get back up, and then I got on the mower and finished mowing the grass. But then I had to go see the orthopedist and everything. So, but
yeah,
but stuff like that. I mean, if I were to tell that story on, when that wasn't even that long ago. But if I tell that story, a lot of people will be like, "Oh my gosh, you poor guy! Oh, you're okay."
right,
Well, where Miles is like, "Oh, your fat ass is on the ground. That's hilarious. You're getting bit by
right,
ants. Oh my gosh.
right.
Go on a diet, you idiot." And just kind of raking me over the coals. But and we know that's fine. It's all good. I was survived, right? I didn't. I mean, I did
Right.
have to go to seek medical attention, but not. I didn't. It's not any worse than it was the day before. At least not much more
Right. And
worse.
it was
So
your knee was gonna pop at some point anyway. So
right,
it's still
exactly. It's
so
just a matter. Yeah, it's just a matter of time for me to step wrong and screw myself over. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'm like, really? I mean, can't you see the humor in that? I mean,
right.
I'm trying to get everybody's attention. I didn't want to roll up to the house, and so I'm trying to
I
get
think it's
somebody to come check
genius.
on me.
I mean,
And so,
seriously, you're hitting the
yeah,
panic button.
yeah. Well, I'm like, because I rolled around from these ants, and I'm like, oh, I got something in my pocket. Oh, it's the key. I wonder if I can get this thing to make some noise. But yeah, I'm just like, that's the kind of stuff everybody's like, oh, you poor guy. It's like, no, I'm an idiot. I know that I can't be jumping up and down on the ground and expecting myself to be okay given my circumstance. You know what I mean? This has happened
Right.
many, many times before. It'd be like
Right.
somebody with a
I,
bad back picking up something heavy. I mean, you're an idiot, right? So,
yeah, no kidding, right?
it, it,
Yeah, well, I've
it,
been working with like blood sugar issues because I'm type 2 diabetic. And I got them so good that I like had a blood sugar crash.
oh no,
And, and it was funny because like, well, funny now, but
right? You
like
you
I
survived.
I'm working from home. I'm in a 2-story house. I'm in upstairs office.
Mm-hmm.
I start getting a little lightheaded. I'm like, maybe I should put something in my stomach to eat.
Yeah.
Maybe. Oh, good idea. So I start going downstairs while I'm still a little dizzy.
Oh
About
yeah.
3, 4 steps from the bottom, I'm like, I'm going down, and
Oh
there's
no.
nothing I can do. And I just took a header and I went boom straight on. And now I fell like all awkward and weird. And I'm just laying there going, okay, did anything break? Huh. Let me see. Wiggle,
Yeah.
wiggle. No, I'm like, I can't believe I'm alive. I should have snapped my neck. Like, but it's like
Yeah, you
I
left.
get up and I know I can't tell my girlfriend until she gets home. Because if I
Yeah.
text her
She'll
that
be
that
home.
happened, she's gonna worry about that the entire time till she gets home.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't tell her fun stuff like that when it happens.
Yeah. And I mean, it's part of life and
Yeah.
it happens. And you know that you have this situation and you know better. Right. So,
Exactly.
but you don't act that way because you're, a guy and you're like, I can do what I want. Oh, holy shit, I can't. Oh, here we
Right.
go. You know,
Exactly. Well, it
that's
was
what
funny.
everybody does.
I got in some X conversation about something about transgender women in women's sports. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it's just not fair. It's just a personal fairness thing. It has nothing to do with ideology or anything. It's just a personal thing. No big deal. But someone jumps on their thing like, I'm going to bed tonight. I'm going to give you a big hug from a person, a woman, young woman of color. I hope you don't
Hmm.
get triggered by that. And I'm like, I
What?
reply, I'm like, I'm Generation X. We don't do triggered. Like
Right.
what the heck is triggered, man?
Yeah,
Like,
I
come
don't
on.
know. People,
Like
yeah,
I understand the triggering. I get PTSD and like obviously we're getting a much more nuanced understanding of it.
mhm.
But man, you can't just make it all X because it was discovered. Like it
Right,
doesn't make
yeah,
everything
exactly.
that.
And you
Yeah.
and you after the fact, you got through it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you knew better. And so,
Right.
how are you gonna I mean, everybody is not living in a china shop, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you can't, you got to live, right? And
Right.
you
Well, that
have to
it's
learn.
now become the words have now hurt, right? Like words have become. So like it became silence is violence and now words are violence. So like what do you do?
Laughter is
Which one is
violence.
it? Which
Laughter
one
is
is it? Can you just tell me like which game are we playing? What are the rules and can they not change for I don't know 10 years? Like or
No, they
short.
always change. That's unfortunately the constant course of things is the change.
Yeah, well, change is inevitable, right?
Changes hurt.
Entropy in some way.
Changes hurt, but we always change.
So I
But
have to ask about this avatar.
oh yeah, sure.
You mentioned Felix and Oscar, so you're Felix the cat, apparently.
Yeah, Felix the cat.
So how
I
did
can't
you
even
come up
do
with the
Felix the cat's
avatar?
voice.
When did this get invented? Or is there a real you in previous episodes that we could dig and find?
No, actually, there's not. So the I'll go in sequence here. So it got invented probably, and I have to look up. I think it's around 2018, 2019, somewhere in that
Okay.
era. I wanted to animate the show, and again, it was one of these things of like, hey, you know what would be cool? And then I finally had access to tools that I did not pay for, and
That's a
and
good. That's not
yeah,
a
that's
Jetson one. That's a good. That's a fist bump in the hooray, Hazaka.
that's up your ass, cheapskate. No, I'm just the so yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to animate the show. At the time, this would be before really mini avatars, before kind of the Zoom proliferation of Zoom and so
Right,
forth.
you're an early adopter, I can tell.
Yeah,
So
and so Miles can't. He's a luddite. He doesn't. Technology is not his friend, and so forth. And so what I did was when I record
our
the show.
buttons technology is that the
Yeah,
problem?
anything like that. Anything he doesn't get it. You know, he wrote me the other day. He's like, "What's Venmo?" People. He goes, "Should I have a Venmo account?" I go, "Not unless you want to spend money." What's Cash App? I'm like, same thing.
You're
So
like, who are you talking to, Miles? That's what I would be
this
asking.
is a normal. Yeah, well, no, I did actually do that. I go, are you purchasing sex? That was my first question.
Is Tiffany, is cinnamon on there? Is kosher sea salt on the other side of this? Who's over there?
Like, I was like, is everybody okay with you spending this kind of money? That was my other question.
Blink
So,
twice.
so he can't do it. You know, this is not going to happen on his end. And so I recorded us and split the channels so that he was on one channel, I was on another channel, and then what we released was a mixed all at the same time. So that was kind of fun. That was like another little thing to figure out. And so then once I had separate channels, then I brought it in, and then I would animate us. And you can go back on YouTube and you can watch the little animated shows. And that's where this character came from. So I became the cat, and he's a snowman, and I put together this little environment. Actually, there's a little lightning bolt there. There's a
Yeah, I
snowman
see it.
on the other side of the lightning bolt is a snowman.
Oh, okay.
And I just zoomed into it because at this point I was lazy, and I'm like, oh, I'll just use it for this. And
Yeah, use it for this.
and
Look, I was so fastidious that I'm like, you're like, set up this account on thing. I'm like, no,
yeah,
I have a Skype. We're good.
yeah.
I'm good.
But yeah, the funny thing when I used Skype, I called his home phone from Skype. That was where we started with that. I finally got him
You
to
remember
figure out.
dial.com?
I never had a dial.com. No, I had
Dial.com,
Grand Central.
it was basically just internet.
Mm-hmm.
It was dial.com. You go on, you put in a phone number anywhere and you called them directly through the internet.
I don't remember. There was a site where you could spoof a number. I was doing that for a while, and I would call
Oh,
Miles's
yeah.
house all the time on a different number. He got really
Right.
mad at me about that, but
Who is this?
exactly.
Calls are
And
coming from inside the house.
I'd put in weird, like, you can type in weird numbers and make them anyway, boob or what have you. So the so then I started doing the animated show, but I had to process all this, right? So it lasted for a while. I can't remember how long, but I went on vacation, and when I came back, I'm like, I'm tired of doing all this work. We've done the animated show now. I'm ready to move on to something else.
Time for a
Because
new
it was just too,
challenge that I
yeah,
can
it was too
have
much
fun
work for me. I was like having to, futz with all this the whole time. Well, then the character's gotten reused because of this. So uh, whenever I decided to do this guesting, I was like, at first I'm like, oh, people will just be audio, right? And then they're like, no, we want video too. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm not going to be on video. Okay, I'll just dust off my cat cartoon character and I'll be that. Because it's
that is
all
cool.
happening live, right? So the software's
Right.
running, it's syncing to my voice, and my head's moving around. I've got to
Right.
work on it so I can move my arms, but I haven't taken the time yet. So I can do my eyebrows. So,
Yeah.
and my
So
eyes.
that's eyebrows and your eyes. So your eyes are actually, it's tracking your eyeballs too, right?
Oh yeah, it tracks my eyeballs. So my eyes dart around a lot apparently because I noticed that on
Yeah,
the
you look a
things.
lot to your left. So the camera must be a little bit to the left, or the computer's a
Yeah,
little bit
I
to your
do.
left.
I can look this way, and then raise my eyebrows. So the
I like it.
but yeah, it's all happening live, and so I did that because of this whole guesting thing, and because I think that I was fortunate early on. I said, "This is this is me, but it is a version of my persona that's a little bit more than my regular everyday, right? So
Right.
I'm entertaining, and so I have to be a little bit more than my usual because that my usual is probably not that entertaining. So yeah, so I've always kind of been behind things. So my name's not even Bob, just so you know.
Love it. You should have just not told me that.
Well, we're talking about it, so
That's
um,
cool. Hey, I like
so
it. You
so
know
Miles,
what?
Miles named
So,
me.
so are you completely anonymous, or can a couple little searches find you? I'm not trying to do it. I'm just wondering, like in the anonymous digital world, do you have a personal footprint that connects you to this persona?
There's somebody looking around. Huh? There shouldn't be too many, if any, connections.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's awesome. I went the other way. I'm like, here's who I am, and I'm just gonna like, you're gonna
Yeah.
find me out anyway. So I might as well
There
once
you
again
go.
start with everything that I am, and
The
then you can fold in the rest, I
yeah,
guess. I don't know.
that my friend Frank. He's Frank. His real name's Frank. I've met him, and so yeah, there's a few people who can make the connection, I suppose, but because I've known him for a really long time, and I ask him, I'm like, basically, this, I'm separate from this, and never the two shall meet. If they adhere to it, which they have so far, this is great. So Miles is
Yeah, that's
not. So
cool.
Miles is a little easier to find. So because but that's more his real persona. I always tell people they'd be surprised. I'm very if you met me in public, not like if we didn't know each other, right? And we just happened to be at the same Panera and we were in line together, there is probably no way that you would go, "Oh, that's Bob."
Right.
I'm
I could tell from I could probably do it with the voice, but unless your voice changes
right.
that
Yeah,
much, but
if I had to talk,
I'm
but
really good at the Masked Singer.
but I mean, as
Well, it's
far as
funny
like
because yeah, to your point, I use my full name more in like not for the recognition of who I am, but it's like I make a lot of ideas or I propose a lot of ideas that I want challenged and I want to change my mind.
mhm.
And I need it to come from me because it's not genuine then if it's not from me. And it's not to say that you're not genuine.
Oh yeah,
It's
I'm probably
just
more
the
genuine
way.
in this version than I am in
Oh,
myself
probably.
now.
You're probably
So
more real, right? And I'm real regardless. Like I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot, and if I were anonymous, it's not gonna help because someone's gonna find a fake. So I might as well just be me. That's kind of how I see it. You know what I mean?
yeah, but it really
But I
is.
love that. I love that you can do that. It's really cool.
It's really from childhood. So in my childhood, I loved radio, and I loved the people in radio, right? And so,
Like
you
different
know,
characters, like
yeah,
Man of the Moon
they
and
were
stuff like that.
never, yeah, they were never, they were always. So if you, I don't know if you've ever had the experience when you were younger, but if you ever met somebody who was a DJ, like the coolest DJ on the radio station where you lived, and then
Yep.
you met them out in the world, they're not the coolest.
They're not. They are old. They're generally older than you thought by about
Older,
10 years,
yeah.
15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a face for radio for sure.
Oh yeah. And they're
Their
not,
headshot does not look like that actual
yeah.
picture.
And they're not usually boisterous. They're usually fair. Like I remember I met and he's probably dead at this point, but his name was Larry Limback was his radio name. His name wasn't Larry Limback. And I used to work at a
Another
video store.
alliteration name.
Yeah, alliteration, yeah. And this would be back in the 80s, I guess. But and I worked at a video store, and he used to come in, and he was not the voice on the radio. He was very reserved, very quiet, soft spoken. I mean, you could almost not hear him. He was so soft spoken, but he was the guy, right? Because back in the day when you worked at the video store, you knew you were like you might as well work at the DMV because you had everybody's information. So, and nobody understands video stores now, but you had everybody's information.
When you went to central bank digital currency, you're gonna
yeah.
I'm trying to modernize it for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. But we had a data, we had a shitty database system with everybody's information.
You knew who was who.
You could look it up. Right. Yeah. I could tell you how old they were. I could tell you their credit history. I could tell you, it was all there. Right. So Larry Limback came in and I'm like, that's Larry Limback from the radio. And then he would come in semi-regularly, not overly regularly. And this was in the days where people actually rented pornos. So then I also knew your proclivities for what you like to rent.
Right. Your order history.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it was.
I think they call it a menu on OnlyFans now. It used to be called your porn, your VHS tape order history. Now it's called your menu.
Yeah. And so it was quite embarrassing because I mean, I grew up in Decatur, Illinois, which is not a small town, but it's if you're familiar with it, yeah, it's supermarket to the world because it's the headquarters for Archer Daniels Midland. But so it wasn't small, but it wasn't big, and so I saw a lot of people and a lot of people who, at the time, I probably had a lot of information that spouses would have loved to know, but didn't. And we were Ashley Madison too. We were trusted, yeah. We were trusted agents, as it were.
Okay, let me ask you this: anybody ever see like you knew like they had a wife, and they came in with their girlfriend renting a video? Like,
a lot of times the guys would be by themselves, so there wasn't a lot of. Or if they did come in with somebody, they'd peel off and go to the porno room. And then their wife would kind of look at the latest releases or whatever. And it was always
it door
funny.
beaded curtain or cloth curtain? Which one did you have?
It was cowboy style. It was the
half thing.
The saloon doors, yes.
Yeah, the saloon doors. Nice. Yeah. Did they do the gush when you went through to really make it shameful? Oh, beautiful. I love that.
And no one wanted to have that sound though. They would all hold the door.
Right. Oh, you're darn right.
Yeah. Because it meant
it's the reverse. It's the men's walk of shame.
Yeah.
Walking up alone with the VHS of the adult movie.
This is so far. This is discs, so little tickets, like little disc tickets that you'd bring up. All the movies were behind. I had to go pull all the movies.
Got it. And, like B14, where's Annie Oakley does Hollywood? Where is she? Where is it? Like on the big mic.
Yeah, we have a show from a long time ago called Disney in a Porno, because that's what everybody would be a Disney in a porno. And so parents would come in, get a Disney movie, and set the kid up in front of the Disney movie, and then go in the bedroom and put in the porno and scream.
Oh, that's great. Is that Friday or Saturday night? Which one was that?
Both. I mean, sometimes it was all weekend. I don't know. I mean, this was at the time when people would literally get 7 movies for a night, and I'd be like, "How are you going to fucking watch these things?" And they would. It was crazy. They would just watch them one after another. It was just craziness.
Yeah, probably on like 3 different TVs or 2
groups of people. Well, they had Disney and a porno, so.
Right. Well, yeah, that's your half. 3.5 movies each.
No, the
You're only
problem was,
watching like 8 minutes of the
yeah,
porno. I mean, come on.
they bring them
How
back
far are
in
you
the
getting
wrong
with that?
box, and so yeah, one of my jobs was to make sure they didn't get.
Did did you rewind this?
Well, we just had to make sure the porno wasn't in
Well,
the
these are
Disney
discs,
box.
obviously, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, no, these are
I just remember the old Be
VHS.
Kind
Yeah,
rewind days.
be kind. Yeah, rewind tapes. Yeah, but the weird thing was always just because at that point I was, what was I, about 19 or something like that, 18, and seeing the pillars of your area come in and get pornos was hilarious. And then they'd see you and they're like,
The
oh,
mayor?
oh, you work here. Oh.
Right.
So yeah, it was a great job. I loved the job, but yeah, it was very eye opening for the young Bob to see all this stuff.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
and then everybody wanted
For
me to get.
sure.
I would have people, begging me, "Can you? The new Brat movie is out. Can you hold it for me?" I'm like, "What?" Yeah, I guess. Some people I would, some people I wouldn't. I'd be like, I can't do
Right.
it.
You had, but you had that power.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Did you ever get drunk with it? Come on, Bob. You got drunk
No,
with
I did.
this one time. You
No,
had the
I'm
one
really
last
bad with
copy of
power. Yeah.
like Big or like Christmas Story on
Right, Christmas
Christmas.
Story.
You had it
Yeah.
and everybody wanted it. It's a
Mm.
wonderful life. They just wanted it.
There were people who were regulars that we would help out, I suppose, but
Oh, for sure.
I never sold the rights. I didn't say, you give me a $5, I'll make sure you get, Big or whatever,
Right.
but no.
Nah.
Both
No, you
both
just did to be
versions,
kind because you knew
the
people
Tom
that like
Hanks and
were
the Harry
movie
Weems
fans,
were,
right?
yeah. Yeah, movie fans, exactly. Yeah, no, it was really a huge cross section of society, from very wealthy people to very poor people, and everything in
Well, yeah, who
between.
doesn't appreciate entertainment of some
Right.
sort?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you want to talk about something universal, right? I mean, music's pretty universal
Hmm.
in a base way. I'm not saying
Right.
taste, but like there's a rhythm that every human could probably like get pulled into some kind of trance,
Hmm. Oh
some
yeah.
kind of beat that would just be some rhythmic thing, like some kind of chord progression that just gets you going. And you
Hmm.
hear it. And you hear it in a lot of songs. You hear it in a lot of things, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, that's how they got you. They got you in like
Yeah.
back here in the back of your brain.
Yeah, between that and not letting me go to the bathroom, they really got me hooked.
Exactly right. Holding your eyes open, Clockwork Orange
Yeah,
style, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy moly. I can't not
In
look
the
like
rain.
Van. Not look like Van. You're ruining it. But
Oh,
yeah, it was great. It was a great time. I mean, it really, it's just like, you always see I haven't seen too many of these memes where the video store, but there's always the meme of people at the record store flipping through albums, and that time is lost, and you don't get to do that. So it was really a kind of, at the time you didn't think about it, but it was certainly a magical time to have all of that media in front of you, and you were perusing it. And I think that's why some albums are back now as kind of a thing, right?
right, because
Um,
it's a physical. There's a
yeah, it's
physical
tactile.
aspect to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you flip through the albums. It's really fun to do. And the same thing was at the video store. People, you wouldn't flip through them, but you'd look at the wall and see all the different things that were out there. And
Right.
and I think we talk about progressions of the way people act and so forth. That was a progression. So the video store, when I worked there was pornography. I mean, that was probably one of um, that was the only place that was acceptable to go to that had pornography, right?
Right.
I mean, the
Right.
gas station with some magazines was acceptable at the 7-Eleven or
Yeah, but you
whatever.
had the
In
black
there,
bags that they were in or whatever,
right?
plastic.
Yeah. And then and then Blockbuster comes along and they ruined it, right? So they
Yeah.
didn't know what didn't want pornography anymore, and so yeah, it was. I'm not that I'm a huge proponent of pornography, but I'm just saying that it's
No, but
interesting
you're a
how,
proponent of like the availability of it being part of the lexicon, part of the
yeah,
culture. It doesn't have to invade or like be pervasive or be the culture, but part of it
no,
for
but
sure.
part of it, yeah, there is a certain uh, there's a certain, I don't know, rite of passage in some ways, and then some people are more into it and some people aren't. And when you take away the availability of stuff like that, I think that's where you're doing everybody a disservice, because now the more you make things shameful, I think the more you hurt culture, because then you homogenize and
Right.
funnel into being, the reality is everybody wants to have a life, right? Now, what that life consists of, everybody has to, we've got a financial system in place that no one can escape, unfortunately. And so then everybody makes their decisions based on that. But to have these things be all shameful and everything, I think that drives to people into worse things a lot of times. We
Right.
talk,
Well, it's like exposure therapy
yeah,
to an extent, right? Like
yeah,
I know it sounds crazy, but something about I heard some weird thing about like peanuts. If you don't expose a child to peanuts by a certain age, and it's like two
right.
or
Then you,
three,
mhm,
then good luck. It's done. You're done.
right. They may be allergic to them then.
Right.
Yeah,
And I read something. I do audiobooks a lot, and there's Jonathan Haidt's Coddling the American Mind, and he was talking about being at the PTA meeting or something, and they're like, okay, we're gonna ban peanuts. And I'm like, well, why? Like, well, people have peanut allergies. You go, do any of our children have peanut allergies? And it turns out none of them did.
right.
And they
Yeah,
still wanted to ban the freaking peanuts. And you're like, why would you do that?
right. Yeah, I
Like,
don't know.
I get it if someone would be affected by this
Hmm.
policy. But all this does is hurt you because it denies your ability in your body to adapt to something that it may,
Right.
that normally you adapt to.
It just
It's
gets
very
weird.
odd.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
but
very that bubble wrap society.
yeah,
So
I think it's
we're very
worse. Yeah.
similar age. How was parenting? I mean, you said you had children pretty young at your age, young for
I
you.
don't know if I was young, but yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
Okay, so you
I had
like
kids.
how was that? How was that experience? I mean,
Oh no,
you're obviously
I
still
loved
doing
it. Oh, it was fantastic. I'll be honest with you. I did not think um, it was for me initially. I thought this isn't going to go over well. But no, it worked out. I mean, everything's worked out great, and I think overall, overall, it's been a fantastic experience for me personally. I don't know. You talk to my kids, and they'll be like, "Yeah, this guy's an asshole," but
it.
I think all the way
Makes you a
around
good
has been pretty
father
good.
then. Because you might have had a little toughness in you if you were a little
Nah,
tough
not
on them.
really. I'm not that tough. But it wasn't. It wasn't a goal, and then it all happened, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And
Cool.
I really do. I think, unfortunately, this gets to other subject areas, but even though I wasn't, this wasn't something that I sought out necessarily initially. It has been great for me, but it may not be great for everybody. And I think you really got to put some thought into all that. And I think if it's not for you, you know, dip your toe somewhere, a nephew or something like that, somebody else's kids, and then if you're like, this isn't happening for me, then don't do it, because I think a lot of times the kids' lives, if you don't pay attention to them, then they get kind of mad at you, and
I think they know if they're not wanted.
yeah, even if you're
I think there's a
trying,
pretty good feeling of intuition of that. I gotta be honest. Like to
yeah.
think children are just dumb, stupid things put in a
Oh
corner.
no, not at all. They're
They are
smart.
nothing but sponges.
Yeah,
They just
smarter than
absorb
me.
everything.
But yeah, it's been a really good experience, and so yeah, I think, at least I think, and they've either got me fooled or not, that I get along really well with my kids. So
That's awesome.
maybe they're just pandering to me, and I'll wake up on my deathbed and be like, "You fuckers, you were punking me
I
this
need to
whole
change
time."
my will. Get me my lawyer.
Yeah, what is going on here, you guys? No, but it was, it's all good. But no, I
That's really
didn't.
cool.
I was kind of, no. I'm like, no, I don't think so. No.
I started off thinking I was like, I grew up, my parents are still together. So like,
Hmm.
I guess it was for me, it was like, I'm going to have the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and the whatever.
Hmm.
And then as I got older, I'm like, it wasn't for me. And then I actually made a decision to actively take that decision away.
Oh, you just got snipped.
Yeah, 34.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
didn't have any kids. Yeah. So it's really interesting because like my brother just had a boy the week that I had my vasectomy.
oh
So he
boy.
has
Well,
three girls and a boy. So I'm like, well, whatever. We're good. I'm like,
hmm.
that was a sign, I guess. I don't know, whatever. So but what it was like at 31 is when I had considered it, but I waited for 3 years.
Hmm.
So like I really considered what the ramifications of this would be. And I was like, look, I have a feeling at some point there's gonna be one of these oopsies things or something. And I'd hate to see that because I gotta be honest, like I'm personally pro-choice, like I'm pro-choice for other people, like I to an extent, but like I don't know if I'm that for me.
You don't want to make
I mean,
that
so
choice.
right. So it's like, you know what? I'll just eliminate the choice because I don't think it's going to be for me.
Right.
So I was
Yeah.
able to say I can't have children. Like I was able to like if I were going on dates or something, I'd be like, oh yeah, by the way, just so you know, I can't have kids.
Yeah, likely story. You just want to screw me without a
Right?
condom.
Exactly, right? Well, it's
Yeah.
funny. I go on a date. Woman was really pushing kids and she was highly aggressive on date number two
Hmm.
and then called me like a day later and said she missed her period or 2 days later and I'm like,
Not,
I had a vasectomy.
not bloody
Here's the note from
likely.
my doctor. Right. Yeah. Not bloody likely. Right. Exactly. So you knew that some jig was up or whatever. But it was interesting that I did that, and it was like literally the next, like within a few other times that was probably within a year or two, like less than 2 years.
Yeah. Oh,
It
well,
was
see.
interesting. But
Yeah, no,
once
but
again, I actually encourage family. Like I know that family is the stability that allows like an outsider like me to be different, but I don't think I should be the culture. Like but that I know
sure.
that sounds weirdly selfish. Like I'm allowed like rules for thee, not for me. But it's like no, I'm kind of wired this way. But I've not. No one made me this way because they pushed me to be something I'm not. I
Hmm.
just happen to walk by the beat of my own drum. It's
No, I
not.
think that's
I'm
good
not
though. I mean,
wearing
you
goth
have to
to be goth.
be,
You know what I mean?
you have to know what you want, you know? I mean,
Right.
I think I coached like pee wee basketball when my kids they asked me to. I'm not a coach material, let's be honest. And then I don't like sports per se. And they, asked me, and there wasn't a lot of volunteers, and I said, "Oh, sure, I'll do it." I know basketball and well enough for Pee Wee. You know what I mean? I'm at the same level you guys are, so we're all good, right? So I did
I'm
that,
just
but
taller.
yeah, I'm just taller. I'm just taller and can drive. And then, but it was really a bit of a melancholy experience, I suppose, because there's so many kids that don't get enough attention at home, and then I was the attention, right?
Right.
And coach, 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 and then they were like all over you, um, wanting you to, be for them. You know what I mean? Which I was
Yeah.
as a coach, but it
Man,
was kind of
that's
sad
like
looking
breaking
back
my
on
heart just hearing your story. You
it.
know?
And some were worse than others. I mean, there was so if you have a little kid that is yours, right? It's socially acceptable for my little kid to crawl around on me and sit on my lap while I'm talking about whatever coaching. And but then they, certain one, and most of the kids understood that, right?
Right.
And they were fine with that. But some of them, I just assume that they were not feeling, like they got enough attention because they wanted to get on my lap because they didn't understand that they can't do that. You know what I mean? It's not.
Right.
It's not acceptable for this
It's not
guy.
socially unacceptable. Right. It's not socially acceptable behavior.
And
Yeah,
so
I
like,
get it.
and then I had to tell my kids, no, so you can sit next to me, but you can't sit on me anymore because these other kids want to get on me because they think they want me to be their dad because I'm here and their dad or whoever is not.
Yeah.
And So then that was a whole situation with my children. Then, as we were doing that, was, it's okay at home, you crawl around on me, what have you. When we go out, you can sit next to
Right.
me. You can't sit on me, because like nobody can sit on me at this point, because then it gets weird, and
Yeah, for sure. I get it.
yeah,
I mean,
and
those types of lessons must be hard to balance as a parent. Like those are the ones that are like, how, how do you even think of that in your head to start navigating that conversation?
well,
And it's about that for everything.
the
Like,
terrible thing is that there's so many of the kids understood it, and they would just sit there nicely, because they didn't, like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm not sitting on his lap.
right, that's true.
Right? But there's
Stranger
some that,
danger.
yeah, there's others that they're just like, oh, I need somebody to love me, and here's
Just to
somebody
touch them.
who's sitting there, and I want them to love me, and so they want to get on you. Oh my gosh! And the terrible thing was, at the time, as you go through this, I'm not thinking anything at the time, and then I'm thinking, wait a minute, this isn't right, and then I have to go through the whole thing, right? So I have to go through all this, and
Right.
I coached for both my kids, and they're a few years apart, so I went through it for several years, and so then and as they grew up, and I watched other kids, because we've been in the same area for a long time. I watched all the other kids grow up, and I'm like, that kid who's got all his problems, that his dad never showed up ever, right? He was the
Right.
one as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, trying to get on me,
Right.
and now he's graduating from high school, and he's a mess.
Oh,
You know what I mean? It it
yeah.
it there is Everybody's like, oh, how could this happen? You know what? I watched it happen from afar.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could just, if you like, if we were just to walk through the high school, I could go trouble, trouble, nice, trouble, trouble. I mean,
Right. Yeah, you pretty much could. Yeah.
and these were all kids who were not even in kindergarten whenever I first interacted with them. And I would come home, and I'd talk to my wife, and I'd be like, oh God, this kid, Charlie,
Oh,
he's gonna be a son of a bitch.
it's so heartbreaking because I totally understand it.
And it's sad.
Right.
It's not. And the thing is, you don't. I was probably, because I mean, there's only so many people who can coach, and there's more kids on the team than there are needs for coaches, right? You don't have to
Right.
be
For
coach.
sure.
You don't have to do more than the minimum, right? But you got to do the
Right.
minimum, and that's what I don't think people get. If they're I don't think they get it. It doesn't matter if they're young or old or whatever. At 6 o'clock when it's basketball practice, if you can't stand around for 45 minutes for a little kid, and you're off somewhere else, why you have the
Yeah.
kid?
Having a beer because
Yeah,
it's happy hour.
whatever. It doesn't even matter.
I know.
You,
I'm just saying it's like, it's tough. Like, that's the thing is like, I get it. It's like, if you take on the responsibility to be that, then be that.
yeah, and it's not even that hard. I mean, you just have to hang out for a little while, and then you can go home and do whatever you want most of the time. Because once they're at home, it there's a weird competition with children in the wild, as it were, when they're out in public, because they want to be recognized, right? Just like anybody does.
Just like
And
anybody. And they don't understand yet that there's that social line yet. They don't,
yeah, yeah,
or they're experimenting with where that line is,
yeah,
right?
they don't know, they don't
Const-
understand it. They're and all they want to do is be, in our case, dribbling the ball and turn around, and there's mom or dad, right?
cheering.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's why I always one of my things. My kids make fun of me constantly because I love to come up with these little sayings, life lesson sayings for them. And I'm like, everybody needs a cheerleader. Everybody
Yep.
does. It doesn't
Everybody.
matter what age you are, or who you are, or anything. You could be a grandpa. You want to have a cheerleader, because you want to have that feedback that says, I'm worth knowing.
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people on a podcast where they'll tell me something like, "That is so awesome that you do that."
Hmm.
And then they'll say, what do you think of it?" I go, "Oh, that's absolutely ridiculous, but I love that you do it." Like
Yeah,
like it has nothing. I don't need to believe in what you believe in to believe in you, right? Like
right, exactly,
let me just be there for you. Like
exactly, and
you go do your thing. I'll encourage you to be you. I'll
and that's
disagree if you ask me, but until that point, I'm happy to encourage you.
it's just it makes everybody needs it. I mean, everybody thinks
Yeah.
they don't, but the reality is, no matter where you go through in life, you're always going to feel better if that's happening. And that's all these kids need. They don't need somebody to be to do all the money and everything. They just need somebody to be sitting there, so when they turn around, they know that they're there. And so many of them,
They need a
got dropped
hug
off.
every once
So
in a while, and they
yeah,
need a couple words of encouragement every now
yeah.
and then. They need to be like known that they're there. Yeah,
It's
sure.
it's not even. I mean, it's not really that hard. And I think sometimes, um, well, we're really getting really deep here. I think
I know,
sometimes
right? I
people
love it.
really they think they got to shame these people. It's like, no, they don't. I don't think people understand where the minimum is, right? And it's just, you just got to do the minimum. To be honest with you, it's just like work. If you want to have a job for your rest of your life, do the minimum, and guess what? You probably won't get fired,
Right.
right? And the same thing with the
Yeah,
parent.
you will be not recognized, but you will not get fired. You're
Exactly.
gonna stay there for sure.
Yeah, and that's all you need to do as a parent. Do the minimum. And so many of them were just dropped off, and then, oh, I got a free hour. Uh, you know.
Right. Like teachers or babysitters. Like, come on,
Hmm.
man.
Right.
Come
So,
on.
but
I mean, they're barely educators, but like babysitters on top of it.
but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. And so, yeah,
I say that in jest because the love of my life is a teacher.
yeah,
So,
yeah, they have the hard job.
oh gosh, she does special education, and we've been together over 5 years,
Hmm.
and neither of us have children or want children of our own, but we see the amazingness in children.
Yeah.
Like she'll come home and she'll be like, "Okay, I brought this vegetable in," and they all looked at me, and one of them goes, "What's that white broccoli?" And I'm like, "I know exactly what that is. I don't need to know."
Cauliflower.
Like, right? How smart of a child? Like, this is like a communication delay child
Hmm.
who can communicate to me what that is without me. I wasn't even in the room.
Right.
So
Exactly.
she'll text me like white broccoli. I'm like cauliflower, and then she goes baby lettuce.
Oh boy, Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, there, boom, right, two for two.
Yeah.
Like how, like seeing that in a child to me is amazing. Watching how they can connect something they know to something they don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's
That's the
the
beauty of
beauty of it.
humanity.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
totally.
and we sit there and we slap the damn thing out of their hand as they're working it.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Like, let him finish the thing.
Yeah. No,
I'm frustrated.
exactly. It is
And it's
frustrating.
funny because like I'm not a parent. I'm like frustrated for parents. Like I'm frustrated that children aren't getting the recognition, but I know that I would be concerned that I wouldn't be able to give that either, you know? Like so
Well, I mean, it can be tough at times. It's not all, peaches and cream, but yeah, I mean, that's been my experience and I think you have to have a certain amount of patience, for that. And the funny thing, I always joke with my wife because I'm like, I'm always the more patient, was always the more patient parents. And I was talking to them. They're older now, obviously grown up pretty much. And I'm like, do you remember I used to take you to the park all the time? They're like, oh yeah, we love to go to the park. I go, yeah, because your mom was tired of your ass and you were making her. She wanted to kill you, and she'd be like, can you take him to the
get them
park?
away.
And I go, okay, I'll take him to the park. And I'd take him out and run around and what have you. And then we would come back and she would be okay, right? Because
Right.
my levels of patience for the nonsense of, playing and yelling and running around and everything was way up there compared to hers. And so it's like, okay, they need to go to the park. You're taking them.
Right.
Okay. And so, but then they had,
Yeah.
the thing was, rather than yelling and carrying on at them and making them try to settle down, which they weren't going to do. Now they at least, I think, have some fond memory of going to the park. So
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
it just,
And they have to burn the energy, man. Little
yeah,
young
they
boys
have to,
have to burn the energy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Look,
yeah,
I'm not
but
gonna
I
lie.
love
There's a slight crisis in this country of young men who don't have direction right now.
right. They don't have to burn their energy off. But
Every bad civilization burns to the ground when young men are find nothing to do.
right.
Like literally, like bad stuff just happens. It just
Well, yeah, you
I'll
get
just
bored. You got to do something. Come on.
right. And men need look. There's the toxic masculinity thing. Look, I get it. Assault on women, yeah, no, thank you. Like rape, no, okay, but like a man being a boy or a boy being a boy and like running around, yeah,
Right.
I think you should allow that, you know?
Well, I always this is my I'm talking to my old guy here.
Yeah.
Talking about the
We used
good
to
old
play chew
days.
the bark off the tree and there weren't any winners. We were all
Yeah,
losers. I
they're all
remember
losers.
in my
I'm
day.
always mad because like not too long ago, I guess it was probably about 2 years ago. But anyway, my kids were out running around at night, and it was. I mean, it wasn't late. It wasn't midnight or anything. It was probably 11 o'clock or something. Anyway, they went by a bank and they thought they saw a cat, and they pulled into the bank and were trying to get this cat to come to them because it seemed like a stray cat. They were going to try to be nice and help out the cat. And the cops came up and started hassling them. What are you doing in here? What are you doing in the parking lot? They're like, well, we were trying to find this cat. It was running around, we're trying to, take it to someplace where it can get some food or something. They're like, there's no cat, is there? What are you doing here? You're by the ATM, take their license, run their license, give them a bunch of crap, right? And scaring
Right.
them. And then finally, there was nothing was happening, and they finally let him go. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, yes, they're in a bank parking lot. They give a very plot. They're not, they don't they don't look like anything menacing. They're
Right.
just a couple of kids. And
Yeah, I mean, like I'd be like, hey kids, get out of here.
right, yeah, exactly. You say the bank really doesn't want to have people parking here. Okay, you're looking for the cat. He ran off. You guys probably had to move along. That was as simple as it needed to be, right?
Right. But maybe it's quota week or something.
I don't know, but they treat him
Like
like that.
yeah, and there's a culture inside that, and I know a lot of people who are law enforcement, and I can't imagine that job.
No,
Just
you're
to be
going to get
clear, I'm
killed every
not.
time you turn around. But
Everything now is potential death.
when I was
I
a kid, I mean, we would do way worse. I mean, I don't know how many times I got alcohol taken away from me underage. They find you, they look at you, they're like, okay, he's not drunk yet. We're just going to take all this
right.
and
Right. We're
scare the shit
breaking
out of
up
you
the
and send you
party.
home.
You guys
Yeah,
got to walk home. Yeah.
yeah. But there was no. It was all kind of cool. You know what I mean? It's all
Yeah.
like, you guys know you're not supposed to be doing this. No, you don't want me to call
Yeah.
your parents, do you? No, no.
How the heck did we get here? And I'm totally fine with it, but it's like the show should be called Tangents. I swear to God, because it's like, man, we just like are running the gamut, and I'm totally cool with it. It's not a complaint. It's just like we're talking about underage. Where did underage drinking and
No, it
cops
just
get in the hassle and your kids being at the ATM machine?
I just think that there needs to be more. I mean, I understand that on the one side, being a cop or whatever is a really tough job, um,
Right.
and you can get into predicaments that are life threatening. But I mean, it's not. The percentages are so slim where I'm at currently that it's not the way to handle it. You know what I mean? You can't
And
handle
probably
everything at a crisis.
de-escalation from the get-go might prevent that from escalating to
Oh
something.
yeah, oh
Let's
yeah.
not kid ourselves.
So
I
then,
mean,
yeah,
imagine the cop giving you like your son like a little push shove on the shoulder.
Hmm.
Just something weird, like, hey, what are you doing here, kid? And then he's got something behind, in his back waistband or something.
Right. Yeah.
Who knows, right? Like,
And I don't want either one to happen, but I think that there needs to
no,
be
no, you don't want
a
anyone. Yeah,
little,
you don't want any of that.
a little more understanding and a little more. The thing about, I think maybe when we were younger was there was kind of a coolness, right? If the cop was cool, then I mean, you knew when you were stepping over the line, and you knew when you were caught. I
Right.
think most people in that
And I think there was a personal accountability to it back then too. Like, we knew that we were screw ups. We weren't a victim when we were the ones drinking.
right, exactly.
Like, I somehow we could justify it now. It's like, but my mom and dad yell at each other all day, so I'm coping. It's like, well, that doesn't make it okay.
Right. That's not
Like,
the reason
that
you're
makes
doing this,
underage
is it?
drinking okay. Like, I mean, I think that's part of it too, right? Is almost like the excusing of it in a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
ways.
Well, and then if you want to get into the whole European model, underage drinking is not an issue if
It's not
everybody's
even a
drinking.
taboo, right? It's not a
Right.
taboo. And I'm come from a German family that wasn't, it was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you learn about alcohol as you grow up, you're better off than learning about alcohol when you grow up.
Right. And it's funny because you've got your European and then you've got your Eastern European, like Russia, where you're just grow up
Mhm.
drinking.
Right? Yeah,
That's
it's
all you do. So it's like a totally different thing where it's like you're
yeah,
born with a vodka bottle in your hand and
but
it's like part of the culture. It's like
yeah,
what cigarettes were at some point.
oh yeah, exactly. Well, cigarettes still are in some parts of the world. Yeah,
Oh, in some parts for sure. That's probably even more like Europe. It's like
yeah,
vodka is to Russia what cigarettes are to Europe still, probably,
right,
or to Italy or
exactly.
something.
Oh yeah, well, France for sure. The
So
there's a whole
we've been down
smoking
this
country.
rabbit hole for 2 hours, Bob, and I'm good to go, and I can continue. It's up to you.
Well,
You've got work, I'm sure, and all this stuff, but I'm
yeah.
enjoying the
No, let's
conversation.
we'll wrap up here soon. I forgot what my last relevant question was. I don't know. Think of a new question for me.
Oh boy, well we can.
We've
So,
been riffing here for
so
probably about
you've
35
gone
minutes.
through this of all the guests you've had a couple. Who
Yeah.
is there one besides the last one you mentioned, the Bitcoin guy? Is there anyone else that stands out to you
Oh
that you
yeah,
can?
yeah. The crazy thing is, get back to that. The crazy thing is, we had more guests before podcasting was invented than we've had since podcasting was invented. Um,
Funny.
yeah, so Scott Baker was a guest, and he at the time he was on a new venture because he was with a thing called streamingmedia.com, which at the time was like cutting edge stuff. And he had us on this is another weird story, but he had us on a show. I was on a show along with Miles and the CEO from Live 365
I
back in
remember Live
back in the
365.
day. This would be about 2000-ish, 2001. We were on the show together. There was supposed to be a third person from a community type station out in San Francisco. I think it was called WPIG or W something or other. Anyway, he didn't show up. So it was just me and Miles and the CEO of Live 365. So you're talking about a venture capitalist project with a lot of money at the time, right? I mean, this was
Right.
when they were starting out, so they had millions. And these two idiots, because I happened to meet Scott Baker, who told me I was on iTunes, and he was doing a little show for streamingmedia.com, and he's like, "Hey, you want to be a guest on this show?" I said, "Sure," and not thinking about it, and so the hilarious thing was at the time my daughter was a toddler, and I had to take care of her after work for a while because of the schedules. And so I'm
Sure.
trying to do this serious talk show with this guy, and I got a toddler walking all around me, making noise, and and so I had to. This is when you still had regular. I had wireless phone, cordless phone, right? And so
Oh,
I had a cordless
right.
phone I could mute, and so I'd be muting myself whenever because she'd get up in my face and would be playing with my face and talking to me, and I didn't want to shush her or anything, and so then I would mute, and then they'd ask a question, and I'd come on and be like, I'm talking, and this kid's going blah 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 blah. I'm sure the guy really loved it, but
Yeah.
he was such a serious guy. I'm sure he
Oh,
was
that's
like, "Why the
funny.
hell am I doing this?" And then Miles was hardly saying 2 words because we were talking technical stuff, and he didn't know. I don't know what
Right.
that is. And but anyway, it was a fun kind of thing, and it's a really interesting juxtaposition at that time of how things were. You know, it was kind of the haves and
Yeah.
have-nots, which I thought was funny. But then afterwards, then we did a show about that because it was a weird situation. And Miles was like, "You took over the guy's show. You kept asking the CEO all these questions." And I'm like, "I wasn't doing that. What are you talking about?" And I don't know. I guess I was, but it was
Yeah,
just
but
kind
you
of
were
like a little
curious.
thing.
That's a
Oh
beautiful
yeah, I'm a
thing.
curious guy. Yeah, but that was
It's
fun.
funny.
And then
I've been on the other side of the mic, like with you, for example, when we flip flop. But it's like I've done that where I find myself asking the questions because
yeah,
I
I
find
think
myself
that's
more
normal.
curious about.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, I do it in real
Yeah,
life. I don't care. I'm like, if I want
right. Exactly. It's like
to.
I almost like the show's all about like think about I'm sitting in the middle of a coffee shop.
Mhm.
You do not know who I am.
Mhm.
But someone outside told you if you walk to the middle and sit down in this thing and just dump your soul,
Right.
you will not be judged and you'll walk away clean and like refreshed.
Oh,
That's
there
how I
you
want
go.
people to like open and be just comfortable talking to me.
I'm the understanding stranger. Um,
Yeah, almost.
the but I mean that was just hilarious.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
can imagine though that being like geek talk and
yeah,
Miles like, uh-huh.
the guy was weird. Miles got put off from this guy because he thought, and I didn't even think about it at the time of the interview, because the CEO guy was going, well, we don't have any hate talk or anything on Live 365. And Miles took it that we were the hate talkers. And I'm like, we're not the hate talk. Why
Yeah,
would
did
you
you
think
typecast
that?
this as hate talk? Right.
Well,
That's unfortunate too.
he kind of had a weird, I mean, he was very aggressive, right? Person.
Right.
And he took it that way, and I'm oblivious, and I'm just like, whatever. Hey, by the way, how much does it cost to run all those servers?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and but he
How
got
many
put off.
hamster wheels are running at this moment? It's the
So
power.
that was like the first incarnation of Live 365, which I think is still going on, to be honest with you, um, in some way,
It
shape,
still
or form.
sounds familiar to me. I remember Live
Yeah,
365. I remember all the early stuff, and
it was
I
big.
remember the
Yeah.
90s when it, 90 and then 2000s where it got swallowed up, and then how it
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
up and down.
everything goes round and round. I got up one time at like 3:30 in the morning to talk to a guy from England about doing audio on the internet from a defunct magazine. They were a multimedia magazine called now.com, and
Okay.
out of London. And somehow he found the show. This would be again like 2000 ish, and contacted us. This time it was just me, and I talked to this guy. It was most fascinating. I got up 3:30 and went downstairs at the time and got on the phone and did a phone interview with this guy from London. And it was the most, I thought, to me it was the most fun and most bizarre thing at the time. I'm like, wow, this is so fun. I'm talking to this guy from England. And then now it's not that big a deal, but back then it was like a whole thing. And they
I
did a
think you had
little
long
article
distance
on
call
us.
charges, didn't you?
He called me, so
Okay,
I,
so but I'm saying
I
like there, I think that still was a thing. So yeah, for
oh yeah,
sure.
probably. I'm sure I paid something. They always pay
Yeah,
something, right? And
crazy.
so yeah, I did that thing, and then it was like I couldn't be too loud because my kid was sleeping, my wife was sleeping, and then we got done, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning or something. Nobody's awake, and I just had to sit there and wait for everybody to wake up because I was buzzing. This was like a
Yeah,
very exciting thing, and
yeah.
it was weird. And then it came out, was on the internet, and I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. Again, lost, but
I know.
the
It's so cool. Yeah.
it was fun at the time. But nowadays, I mean, I talked to. I've been on other shows in overseas, in Australia and Canada, everywhere. I mean, via
That's
this kind of
cool.
stuff, and it's no big deal, and everybody does it every day. It's not a big thing, but back in those days, it was something else. I would say I've got a couple more highlights, I suppose, guest highlights.
Yeah, for sure.
So I always joke that we worked our way up. So we did this thing for streaming media, which was online only. You know, I talked to Hargrave, he was online. And then I finally got, I actually took a step up and then back. I made contact with Will Wheaton, who was from Star Trek fame.
Oh, my friend. I just listened to his audiobook not that long ago.
And unfortunately, it never totally happened. But
I think the three of us could figure out something.
So
Another alliteration child.
The deal was, he was at the time was not on Star Trek anymore. He was kind of faded into the background, but he was writing.
Yeah, that was his downtime. Yes, I remember that those times.
He was writing a blog, and I was reading it quite regularly. And
yep. WillWheaton.net, wasn't it?
Right, WillWheaton.net, exactly.
I think it's .net, not .com. I remember, yeah.
Correct, yeah. And I think it's still going, actually.
I think it is.
And so he hadn't written his first book at this point. He was just writing the blog. And I interacted with him and finally said, hey, could you come on and do a little phone interview? And he was up for it. Now, here's my big mistake. So at the time, I included Miles in all these emails, and he would generally not ever pipe in. But for some reason, I guess because it was Will Wheaton, and he knew who he was, as opposed to all these other people that you know I talked to, he had no idea who they were. He decides to pipe in, and he goes to Will Wheaton, hey, I heard you're going to do an interview with us. That's going to be fantastic. Let me ask you a question. And he asked Will Wheaton, in Stand By Me, which one of you guys had the biggest unit in the email? And guess what? Will Wheaton would not talk to me anymore. He got so angry, which I don't blame him.
Will Wheaton was this weird, in that moment of his life, from what the chronology of his story is, I can imagine how awful he would have been about it. And like, I can imagine how he would have felt about it.
Yeah. And so Miles, he was trying to be funny.
He's trying to be funny. He's trying to be cute. I get it. Yeah, right. Totally. But like, it
didn't come across that way. Yeah.
Well, the sympathy is like, you didn't put yourself in a struggling actor's shoes who hasn't gotten a job, and that was even right. You're trying to talk to him after the last thing he did. You're trying to get him for like the first thing he did.
Right.
That doesn't work because you're talking about typecasting him back to the beginning. It's like,
right,
no.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, it's actually humiliating for someone.
It was a horrible question, and I was so mad at him. But what are you?
And then again, I also get the ignorance that Miles had. And when I say ignorance, I do not mean it with disrespect. It's like I don't think he understood the ramifications of that question in the context that it was.
No, not at all. Because he,
we need to fix that. Like, we need to repair that. Cause like, I think that would be a fun conversation.
Well, now obviously he's had much more success, and he's not in that weird phase between child actor and adult actor. And even though he was really more of an adult after Star Trek anyway, but anyway, so yeah, that's what happened with it. So that I just wrote that up, and that actually there's a whole show about me berating him for doing that. But so then I'm like, okay, yeah.
And there's a bit of constructive criticism for him too. He's like a victim of his parents.
Yeah,
I could take that route. I could totally take that route, and I never have. Yeah. I can promise you I never have. And I'm happy to share with you, but like, notice we talk about stuff. I haven't brought stuff up because it's like, it's not what this is about. This is about other stuff. But like,
oh yeah,
he did become like, he talks about like divorcing his parents and like how he was like this victim about the gaslighting. It's like, I get it too, but dude, you're a boy, you're a man now too. Like I understand there's trauma. Like I get both sides of it. So like, I try to empathize, but it's like, at what line is the line like enough already? Like, where are we at the line?
He wanted to act, and then he did, and then he didn't want to for a while, but he was kind of forced into it a bit because he earned so much money.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I know what his parents did. I know the exact gaslighting, and I listened to that book. I think it was the remake of his book, because it added like another 20 hours. It was like 40 hours or something. or
So
something.
he
So,
shortly
and
after
I'm
this
happy
was
to
when he
listen to it.
wrote his first book. So yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right. It was a reflection. I think it was like the
Yeah.
10-year anniversary or something. So,
Yeah.
with the
Wow.
annotations, right? Basically, yeah. So,
Yeah.
really
It was.
interesting, and I admire the guy. I'm just saying, like I
Oh
thought
yeah.
recently the way he spoke out, it's like not everyone's exactly like that was.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Although you can argue that they had elements of that or something.
my thing for him was I mean, he was doing, again, all my things in the early times, especially, were driven by the fact that he was doing something that I thought was really cool because it was so out front. I mean,
Yeah.
there were
Well, that's the thing
blogs, and
is you
yes, he was a
approached him
blogger,
from
but
a
yeah.
very from his perspective,
Mhm.
and Miles approached him
Right, Miles.
from
He does.
the
He's not
human
there.
perspective
Right.
that everyone approaches Will Wheaton from.
Right.
I,
Exactly.
like and once
Yeah.
again, it's like, yeah, we know, like, I don't think he would do that again, nor I don't think he'd do that to someone else. I think he'd realize that now, maybe he
Right.
wouldn't, but
Who
I would hope
knows?
so.
But it
That's what growth
was
is.
inappropriate no matter what,
Right.
and yeah, so that didn't happen. But the
Well, that's unfortunate.
probably the
I'm
yeah
sorry.
probably the and you won't even know this person, but we got to talk to a guy named Martin Sargent. I was really into watching Tech TV at the time,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
of all the shows. And so he was on Tech TV. He had a new show called Unscrewed, which was their late night talk show.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I did get through to him. Amazingly, somehow I got through to him, and we did an interview. And he knew Will Wheaton because Will Wheaton was on Tech TV quite a bit back in those days.
Oh, yes, he
And
was. Yeah.
I told him the story, and he was like, "You guys are assholes," but it's all recorded out there. But he did talk to us, and so that was probably as far as a mainstream at the time. Obviously, no one probably remembers who poor Martin is now. He was a really cool guy. At the time, was that was pay cable.
Right.
That was somebody, and so but that all, again, all before podcasting was a thing, and so yeah, that was kind of that, and then we just kind of. I think what happened was my kids were getting older, and then I have other responsibilities, and so tracking all this stuff down became too much to do.
Sure.
Because, as you know, because you've gotten some good gets, that there's work in that, right? So there's work to get people to agree, and you may have to go back and forth with them several times, and arranging things and all this kind of stuff, and you kind of have to be persistent, and it can
You
take
be
some time.
persistent and flexible and very
Yeah.
understanding and patient because, like, you have to realize and humble because you're a nobody.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And that someone's giving you any time, you
Hmm.
best be darn happy and humble and gracious that they're giving you that time. And when they change on you last minute, it sucks and you have every right to feel angry.
Hmm.
Feel angry, but don't let that affect the
Right, because
relationship.
you still want to have them on, so you just got to
There's
eat
a
it and
greater
move
good, right?
forward.
There's a greater good to get. And I think
Yeah.
everybody gets hothead about stuff. What, you don't like it? Fine, screw you, I'm out.
Yeah. It
Doesn't always
happens,
work.
and you can't let it get to you. You just got to say, okay.
I'm at one right now. I've got a major guy who gave me an hour of his time who was so gracious.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to get him in a debate with the former US ambassador to Russia during Obama.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I've got the assistant and I got the guy through LinkedIn. I'm like, I bet he wouldn't. I bet he wouldn't debate this guy because he wouldn't have the courage. And the guy's like, he goes, I don't even know who that guy is. I go, okay, well, let me work on this because I'd love that. And I go, I'll even go on the podcast. And before we even start, I'll say, I said that you didn't have the courage, but I was 100% wrong. And like, I'm like, I start with humility. I'm like, I will start hat in hand, but then
Hmm.
let's do this. But the guy's pushed it back 2 quarters already. And I'm
Yeah.
like, come on. And now I messaged like first of the year, and now it's been 2 weeks. I just followed up. Both emails were ghosted, and it's like,
Mm. Yeah.
come on, man.
But you put a lot of time into that kind of stuff, and it's just
Yeah.
tough. So.
But it is the persistence. Like, I'm not going to stop because, like, that, if I can get that conversation about Ukraine
Mhm.
with the two people that I'm talking about getting,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like, it
that's
would
something.
be, and it's like, I don't care that it's me. I do not care that I care that someone got it.
Right.
You know what
Yeah,
I
no,
mean? Like,
definitely. Yeah, that's the fun of it, though. That's part of the
yeah, for
deal,
nothing
right?
else other than like, I want it out there. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
that thirst. So anyway, but man, it's so awesome that you've done this for 25 years. Congratulations.
Yeah, I've been pretty
And it's,
lazy though. So, I mean, these you get the highlights for this little shindig, but yeah, most of the time it's just, the regular. So,
yeah, but you know
um,
what? Those stories are, you find yourself like, and especially when you're simpatico and you just start laughing. And like, I'm sure you've had that where you just can't
oh
stop.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
So,
It gets to be too much sometimes. I don't know. It's really silly. I love the silly. I love the kind of kookiness and the silliness and the going out to the edge and seeing where you end up. That's the kind of stuff I
well, I love
like.
that you kind of get to do it like exercise. It's like once a week, you get
Yeah.
to purge, you get to tap into this part of you that's not always tapped into, right? Because being a father, being a husband, those things, your job, your career person, those things all take different skill sets, and like you'd hate to
Yeah.
see this part of you atrophy, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. And I love, maybe I don't think I've demonstrated it overly too much on this, but I mean, I love to be quippy and just kind of on my toes and throw things off there and silly
Yeah, well, I've always
voices and the
found you
whole
to be
work.
that because
So
in the few conversations we had, not sure they've all been excellent, but like and well, like long, but in a good way. But in those few conversations we've literally been able to talk almost about every subject where we haven't been like, yeah, I know nothing about that. It's either been,
well, we're
I
we're
know a little bit
touching
about
on
that, tell me
human
more, let me
subjects,
catch up
so
to you, or oh yeah, we can talk about that. Let me share something with you about it, you know?
I always say that if nothing else, our show is relatable on some
There
way,
you
in
go.
some way, shape, or form. We're relatable either through I love pop culture, it's pop culture references, or through just living your life and running into problems. I'm probably not super relatable to a crack addict who's on the floor of a bathroom in a dive bar somewhere, but maybe
I don't know many people who are relatable to that.
to
It's more, how about fentanyl? How about fentanyl people?
yeah,
Would you relate?
we'll get up to date. Yeah, fentanyl.
Oh, I got my fentanyl shots.
I've
Yeah.
got my fentanyl and I'm tripping out
Got
and
my Narcan on me, so we're good to go.
right, exactly, yeah. But yeah, I went and got my Narcan so I could do my fentanyl, and so that
Oh
way I
man.
don't overdose because it's very
God
fast
forbid.
acting. That Narcan is very fast acting.
That's what
So
I hear. I hear
yeah,
fentanyl's pretty fast acting too.
yeah, it's all quick. But no, I mean again, this is kind of gallows humor. This is where the over sincerity. Oh my gosh, these poor people, they can't help it.
It's
Yeah,
a
I
hundred
know.
thousand deaths you've had this year, and they
Well,
were all innocent.
yeah. I'm like,
Maybe
okay, I'm
more.
not saying nobody's saying they're not innocent. I'm just saying that, it's kind of funny. I mean,
Yeah,
in a weird,
it's
sad way.
it is. You're like, man.
I mean,
Well, yeah, it's sad. But
nobody
you
putting
know
their
what? It's funny.
yearbooks.
Well, we were talking about the police thing, right? I
Mhm.
watched like that live PD show before it went off, and then came back on because BLM shut it down for a bit. But
Yeah.
like, I'd say 75% of those interactions are like pretty cool cops. To your point, like, hey man, what are you
Oh,
doing?
good.
Are you
That's
sure
good
you're
to
cool?
hear.
You're right. You know, like, and you watch that and you're like, okay, because it kind of humanizes it. But then you
Yeah.
do have the ones where, like, that camera does, I think, does affect their actions though too in a way that they don't get to do their job fully either. You know what I mean? It's like weird,
Sure. Well, they're
and
going to
it's
be
like a fine line though, because the
scrutinized.
body cam should be on, but they don't need to know it's on. You know, like, doesn't need
Right.
to have a big green light or something. It just,
Right.
you know, like it almost needs to be like where they don't even, they don't even know where it's at. Like it's on them, but they don't even know.
Right. Yeah. Hidden.
I don't know. It'd be some interesting
Cop's
thing.
hidden camera. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
No,
don't know.
that'd
I
be
hate to do it
interesting.
that way,
I don't know. But yeah, I
but it's
mean,
like I don't know.
I was going to joke basically nobody in their yearbook says, I want to be a drug addict and I want to die in a ditch.
Right. Right. I want to drive all the way out to LA. I
Hmm.
want to do a couple adult movies, fall and then get caught up into drugs and have my teeth
Right.
fall out.
Yeah,
I'm going to model
yeah.
and for a calendar.
I mean, that's not, that's not the thing. So anyway, that's why I always get, well, I don't think these people really want, no one's saying these people want to be here. They don't want to be
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
they're here, and
Right.
this.
And addiction is a real thing because
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah,
if you hear stories of shelters being empty and you're like, why are they empty? And it's like, well, we don't let people do drugs here.
right. No,
So
you
they'll
need
rather
you
be
need to.
outside and do the drugs than
Yeah,
be sheltered and not do the drugs.
right.
And you're like, okay, so what do
Well,
you do with that?
that's
Like,
the
I don't,
cops' problem. That's the
I,
we're a
you know what?
homeless shelter.
How do
We
we
just want the.
like how yeah like and then talking about it's like are we against or for it? Like no, we're not here to arrest anyone. Like we're trying to be like what is the problem, how do we fix that problem?
Yeah, no, you're right. That is
People
messed
go
up.
to like a binary, it's always binary though. It's like if you talk against it then you're some authoritarian police prick, and then if you talk for it you're some hippie drug addict. It's like there's a nuance there, people. Like there's like a lane in the middle between
Hmm.
the
Well, if you're going to
those are
help
just the
people, you
shoulder.
gotta help them. You can't just say, "Well, because you're doing that, you can't be helped."
Right.
If you really want to help people with
But they
drug
have to have
problems, you got
wanted
to help
to.
people
And I
with
mean,
alcohol.
it's like one of those.
Oh yeah, but again, you gave the perfect example of an interview, right? They're going to come, they're going to say, "I want to do this," and then they're not going to do it, and they're going to do
Right.
that again and again and again until they finally do. And
Right.
if you're not there to open the door,
Yeah.
it's never going to happen. Am I right?
Right.
So,
That's a
it,
true state. And to your point, persistence. I mean, you do have to let your care show, right?
right. You've got to say, okay, fine, go back out in the world and screw yourself up. But if you don't feel like not doing it anymore, come back. You know,
Yeah.
because if you're not there to answer the whatever the text or the email for the interview, you're not going to get it. Well, they're never going to get better if you're not there to be there when they're ready to get better. So yeah, it's all the same. I don't know why it's so simple. I don't know why people don't understand it. You know what I mean? I can see
Yeah.
not wanting to put up with it because it's bullshit and you don't want the bullshit, right? It's their
I,
bullshit that
I,
you're gonna have to take, but
from a
that's part of
person,
the thing.
yeah. Well, from a personal perspective, I think I am of the opinion that you give it a number of efforts,
Mhm.
and at some point, it becomes an anchor versus the thing that can pull you down with your other loved ones.
Yeah, but we're not talking about letting them pull you down because you know
Right.
what's going to happen. It's a real simple
Right.
equation.
We're talking something a little bit different, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. To your point. Yeah. That's
there,
a good
there.
point.
I mean, if you're, I'm talking about actually the care facility, not your mom and dad and your brother and sister or your friends or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, they
Your
need to
close
draw a line, but the
relationships.
care facility
Yeah.
should never draw a line
Oh,
because
no, certainly
that's
not.
a
No,
care.
especially they should
Yeah.
be absolutely objective about all of it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because it's a
Excellent
simple
point.
equation. They're either going to live and come back, or they're going to not live and come back. They're not going to come back. You
Right.
know what I mean? So, I
Right.
mean, we're talking the grim, unfunny aspect of it is people get in a downward spiral and then they die. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
way. And yeah, we want those facilities to be there. We don't want people running the facility that says, "Oh no, you can't be here because you're a drug
Oh,
addict."
for sure. Yeah. We
And
don't want
well,
that.
I
Yeah. And
thought
I
you
think
were a
I
drug addict
misunderstood. I think I
facility,
made it a little
man.
more familial and personal than.
But anyway, yeah, now we're getting deep and it's serious again. Holy shit.
Hey, we end on a good note with hope. So we end on this is
There you go.
take care of people. We should always have that opening to at least listen and acknowledge that people exist. Uh,
Yeah. No,
how
definitely.
about this? Let's end on two inspirational. I'll end on my story, and then you can end on an awesome story. We'll call it
Okay.
a day. How about that?
Oh boy, I gotta think of
So,
an awesome story now.
uh, I'm in Arizona, Phoenix. It's a little warmer, so we have a lot of homeless people walking around. A lot of people at
Mm-hmm.
bus stops, whatever. I'm at the gas station putting gas in my car. Gentleman walks up to me and goes, "Excuse me." He starts telling me his story.
Mm-hmm.
I make eye contact with him. I listen to him. I nod. At the end of it, I say, "I'm sorry. I only have this card. I don't have any money. unfortunately, I don't have anything. He says, okay, thanks. He walks away. He stops. He turns around. He goes, hey, thanks for listening to me. And then he
Oh, that was
walked.
nice. Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, the guy engaged me. Why? What am I going to shun him? It's like, I don't even
Well,
understand that was a thing.
right.
Makes me kind of sad. You know what I mean? Like that needed to be acknowledged.
No, well, that was actually, I mean, it was nice of him and it was nice of
Right.
you. And so really
Right. But I
it
mean, like
was,
that's even needs to be acknowledged. We should all be
yeah,
able to look someone in the eye and say,
sure.
tell me your story and I'll listen to you or at least know you're here.
Yeah. Acknowledge your presence.
So,
All
and it kind
right.
of comes to what you're talking about with the kids. Like they just want to be seen. Right. So
Yeah. Everybody just
maybe
wants,
that's our callback. So
you don't have to
call it a
agree with
day.
everybody.
Share
Yeah.
all your socials, all your good stuff, Bob. Thank you so
Oh,
much for this
yeah.
conversation, man. It's been awesome. I hope we talked about maybe doing like a roundtable of some sort. I think that would be a lot of
Sure.
fun.
Yeah.
So like I said, we'll keep in touch, but hope maybe Adam will get back to that email tomorrow and I forwarded it to you so you can read it and laugh.
Yeah, I don't know that he's made a lot of money between now and then. So
Yeah, no
then and
kidding.
now. So who knows? But thanks for having me. Yeah, and I mean, it's a wild ride and it's still going on. So everybody just hang on to your hat, I guess.
Cool. Bob LeMent from Static Radio, sir. Thank you so much. I know you can't lift your arms. I'm going to hit stop here, but thank you again. Staticradio.com, correct? Is that where we can find all your
Oh
stuff?
yeah, you can find me there and then Static Radio on any of the socials, really.
On the socials, perfect. And I think we follow each other on X and some other stuff. So
Yeah.
cool. Bob, thank you so much for the time. I'm really grateful. And one of the first 50 podcasts, I can only imagine maybe 10 of them possibly still existing. Maybe 10.
Oh, I hope more than
Hey,
that, but yeah, hopefully.
you think so? Of the
Well, I can't
remember the
find them,
first
but yeah,
50,
they must
we're in
be
the
out there
2
somewhere.
millions now, right? But anyway, so thank you again. It's been awesome. I'm going to hit stop here and stay on, please, because I've had some technical difficulties. So we don't want to have that again. But thank you
Sure.
again. Welcome to the Knocked Conscious family, sir. And we'll talk again soon. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, good night, sweetheart. Good